Chapter 196. However, over the years, there have been very few cases of the array being broken through. There's no need to be too nervous. Thus, Fang Yu directly eliminated the central array tower. We'll choose the southern gate array tower. Fang Yu said. Why? Is there a special reason? Mo Ling asked with interest. Fang Yu was not someone who would do meaningless things. Therefore, there must be a special reason for him to choose the southern gate array tower. Because it's close? Fang Yu thought for a moment and said. Because it's close? Everyone was stunned. What kind of reason was that? Why? Isn't that a reason? Fang Yu smiled. No, but... Mo Ling wanted to say something but hesitated. Our understanding of Flame City is limited. Although there are many legends over the years, it's easy to tell whether they're true or false. If they're true, I'm afraid that it's long gone. If they're false, it means that no one has discovered any clues. Therefore, it doesn't make much difference which one we choose. Fang Yu spoke frankly. Mo Ling couldn't help but frown. Fang Yu's words were a little arbitrary. The problem was that she actually felt that Fang Yu's words made sense. She was convinced by him. Brother Fang, that seems to be the case. Kugyur muttered to himself. Therefore, we'll choose the southern gate array tower. Moreover, we didn't come very early. It'll take us some effort to occupy an array tower. Fang Yu said with a smile. After speaking, Fang Yu looked at the southern gate array tower. As expected, there were already some people gathered there. It wasn't hard to see that Flame City's fame had attracted many cultivators who were interested and felt that they were strong. Then let's do it. Kugyur clenched his fist. Being chased by Mayan and the others had made him angry. He had no choice. He didn't like Mayan, but he couldn't deny that Mei An's cultivation talent was terrifying. She was even stronger than him. Therefore, not to mention that he was being chased by Mayan and the others, even if Mayan was alone, Kugyur wouldn't casually attack her. Because that would be asking for trouble. There was no need for him to make himself unhappy. However, other than Mayan and the other geniuses, Kager was not able to kill them with a single punch, but he was not far off. Southern Gate Formation Tower. Someone's here. Seeing Fang Yu and the others coming at them menacingly, the group of people who had occupied this place first stood up to meet them. Crackle. Humph. Trash. Kagol single-handedly defeated all of them. It was undeniable that although these people's strength was not bad, they were not strong enough to face Kagol, especially an angry Kagol. Barbarians have innate physical talents, and Kager is smart. He can't be treated as an ordinary barbarian. Fang Yu fell into deep thought. If it were him, if he had underestimated his opponent, he would not have been able to avoid suffering a loss at Kager's hands. Kagol's appearance was too deceiving. If she wasn't careful, she would be deceived by him. In the end, it was the same as these random fellows. After they failed, their points were stolen. Seeing this, the defeated guy's face turned ugly. If they did not have any points after a day, they would be eliminated. Fortunately, it was almost dark now, and they still had a day to earn points tomorrow. Otherwise, it would be too miserable to be eliminated on the first day. I got 50. 0 points all of a sudden. Kager happily glanced at his ranking. He was in the top 10. After all, today was the first day. Many cultivators did not rashly hunt demonic beasts to increase their point. Instead, they gathered information, rested for a day, and waited until they met up with their companions before making plans. You don't be so proud. My sister is on the Hidden Dragon list. If you go to Azure Dragon Institute in the future, you will have to bear the consequences. A girl whose points were stolen said indignantly. Because it was a great humiliation to have her points stolen on the first day. If it weren't for the fact that they could not defeat Kagol, she would have wanted to take revenge. Hee, what's your sister's name? Why don't you tell me? Kagol was not afraid at all. He laughed and said, And how do you know that I have no one in Azure Dragon Institute? Let me tell you, Senior Mu Qingxuang, who is in the top 3 of the hidden dragon list, is my big sister. I am her underling. Mu Qingxuang. The girl's face changed. Obviously, she knew who Mu Qingxuang was. Just you wait. The girl's face changed a little, but she's still left with her tail between her legs. When did you become Mu Qingxuang's underling? Fang Yu asked curiously. Underling? Can't I call myself that? Moreover, my aptitude is so good. When I enter Azure Dragon Institute, Senior Mu Qingxuang might even accept me as an official underling, Kegel said indifferently. Fang Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. Only Mu Qingxuang was so powerful that she could act so arrogantly. If Mu Qingxuang was here, Kegel would not even dare to breathe loudly. Moreover, if we were to talk about underlings, it would be me. Fang Yu could not help but mutter, although he really did not intend to be Mu Qingxuang's underling. Furthermore, it was hard for him to imagine that once Mu Qingxuang found out that the Yufang back then was him, he was afraid that something very bad would happen. Let's go and investigate the mystery of the Southern Gate Formation Pagoda, Fang Yu said to Feng Yaoguang. Brother Fang, aren't you going to earn points? Mo Ling stopped Fang Yu, and you don't want me to go? Although Kegel is strong, he can't handle this alone. You have to go, Fang Yu said seriously. Initially, Mo Ling wanted to continue arguing with Fang Yu. However, Fang Yu's words were so sincere that she forgot to refute him. Let's go. Fang Yu pulled Feng Yaoguang and left. Me. Feng Yaoguang was stunned. Although your Dao heart has calmed down, you are still far from being able to fight with these ferocious guys. Let Mo Ling and the rest handle this, Fang Yu said. This, all right. Feng Yaoguang had no reason to refuse and could only follow Fang Yu. Sister Mo Ling, aren't we at a disadvantage if we stay here? Kegel suddenly asked. You look like an honest person, but your heart is full of evil tricks. Mo Ling took a deep look at Kegel. She knew that Kegu was trying to sow discord between her and Fang Yu because of what had happened in the past. For the time being, it was a small revenge. Kegel smiled but did not say anything. Let me put it this way. If we are together with Fang Yu, we will never be the main characters, Mo Ling said in a serious tone. Kegel was slightly stunned. He did not expect Mo Ling to change the topic. Chapter 197. However, as long as there are enough benefits, it's not bad to be second place forever, right? Anyway, I'm looking forward to getting a Sun evaluation with Fang Yu, Mo Ling said leisurely. You're really daring to dream, Kegu said, somewhat speechless. Admittedly, whether one could enter the school depended on the overall evaluation. However, the star, moon, and sun evaluations required absolute strength. If one's strength was insufficient, it was impossible to enter. That was why when Fang Yu said that he would help Feng Yaoguang, Kegu's eyes widened. If he could easily become a moon student, he would rather transform into a cute girl and charm Fang Yu. Unfortunately, this kind of thing was very, very difficult. Very difficult. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Fang Yu, but there were some things that couldn't be solved with hard work. Although that's the case, the people in Tianji Hall are all swindlers, and they're all big swindlers. They might have seen something, which is why I believe in Fang Yu. Then, should I? Kegu's imagination ran wild. This was because he also needed strength. Whether it was becoming a moon student or becoming a martial spirit, he could solve his current predicament. With just him, the hope was slim, not to mention Mayan, who was considered a top genius in the barbarian race. You and I don't walk the same path. At the very least, you're not a woman. You can't learn what Feng Yaoguang and I do. If you force yourself to learn, Fang Yu might immediately hand you over to Mayan, Mo Ling reminded Kegu out of goodwill. In fact, Kegu was a good person. It was just that sometimes, he was a little whimsical. Kegu had an awkward expression. He was also afraid that Fang Yu would really hand him over. That would be fun. Is there anything special about the formation tower? Feng Yaoguang followed Fang Yu around the southern gate tower. She was puzzled. This was because they had walked for a full hour, and there was not a single trace of them. There's a special life form here, Fang Yu replied. As he spoke, Fang Yu scanned his surroundings, his eyes bright and spirited. There were fairies here. This was a life form that also existed in the profound sky world. Moreover, the reason why Fang Yu was able to rise to power was because he had obtained the Elf King's inheritance. Speaking of which, the Elven King had a very high status in the profound sky world. He was equivalent to the ruler of first-rate races like the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan. With the Elf King's inheritance as a foundation, Fang Yu successfully changed his fate. Even though he had fallen in the end, his senses towards fairies were still there. This was something that was engraved in the soul. Therefore, Fang Yu said that there was something here, a special life form. Perhaps after all these years, the secret of Flame City is related to the elves. Fang Yu could not help but think. His idea was very bold. This was because there weren't many fairies in the profound sky world. They were few in number, but they were very powerful. How could he not be surprised when he heard that there was one in the myriad spirit continent? The main reason is that the elves are very powerful. If there were elves in the myriad spirit continent, it would be impossible for them to keep it a secret. After all, the Ghost Clan and the like are passed down by word of mouth. The powerful Elf Clan can't be unknown. It can only be that this is a special case. Fang Yu recalled another matter. There were many things in the Azure Dragon Mirror that were unintentionally swallowed by it. If Flame City was not originally Flame City, but a lost plate or something like that, it would not be strange for it to appear in the myriad spirit continent after being swallowed by the Azure Dragon Mirror. Although Feng Yaoguang did not understand the reason why Fang Yu was being so mysterious, considering that Fang Yu never did useless things, she still believed in Fang Yu this time and quietly followed him. As Fang Yu went deeper into this place, Fang Yu became more and more certain of the truth of Flame City. There were fairies here, and they were living fairies. Fire fairies, Fang Yu muttered to himself. Buzz, suddenly, a powerful flame lit up. The moment the flame appeared, Feng Yaoguang fainted. This was a form of self-protection. Because if she did not faint, she would have to face this flame directly. This was a flame that could roast the soul. Who are you? The flame that appeared was both shocked and angry. It was because it felt an indescribable familiar feeling from Fang Yu. It was as if it was facing its king. Me? I am Fang Yu. Fang Yu stood with his hands behind his back, his expression unchanged. You are a fire fairy, right? It seems that you are also a general? The grade of fairies was linked to their status. A fire fairy general was almost the status of a martial king among warriors. It was quite extraordinary. Oh? You know about us fairies? This fire fairy general was even more shocked. Could it say that for so many years, no one had ever been able to say anything about the fairies? Even if the so-called Azure Dragon Academy sent powerhouses to investigate, the other party either did not notice any clues or deliberately let it pass. It was not difficult to guess why. The fairies were very good at guarding and sealing. If they were unwilling, even if you forced them, they would be one step ahead of you. It was precisely because of this that the powerhouses of the Azure Dragon Academy, who could detect the clues, did not act rashly. If it was really destroyed, then the gains would not make up for the losses. It was better to leave it to the fated person. Of course I know, as he spoke, Fang Yu displayed his mark of fire according to the memories in his soul. This is the mark of a king. You are a king? The fire fairy general was stunned. The fairies were just a general term. There were fire fairies, water fairies, etc. However, the fire fairies did not all live together. They also had their own tribes. It was not strange for two kings to exist at the same time. In other words, if there was no king, then the fairies would not be far from destruction. Now that this fire fairy general had met a human with a king's mark in Blazing City, what the hell was this? How can you guess the king's matters? Tell me about the situation here, Fang Yu said in a low voice. At the same time, the Super Slaughter System's voice sounded, "Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the random act, sudden pretentious. Received 10,0 slaughter points." Fang Yu was dumbfounded. What the hell was this random act? And the sudden pretentious? I really did receive the inheritance of the Fairy King in my previous life, okay? It was real pretentious, not pretentious. Ding. The random act is a special mechanism after the host's soul and body become one. The system will hide a cultivation level after a period of time. If the host completes it, then the host will receive slaughter points. Can it be done without limit? Ding. No, after completing a random act, this act will disappear. Then it is a pity. Fang Yu's tone was regretful. Chapter 198. This. May I know where your highness wants to start from? The fire spirit general hesitated for a moment before asking respectfully. No matter what, this was the king of another race. Moreover, they were both fire spirits, so he needed to be respectful. Start from the beginning, Fang Yu said indifferently. The lifespan of the elf race was very long. On average, their lifespan was 10 times that of the human race. Because of this, the elf race's cultivation speed was not fast. They were powerful because of their innate abilities. For example, the warriors of the myriad spirit continent needed to absorb the energy of heaven and earth to use martial arts. The elves did not need to. This was their innate ability. It was as simple as eating and drinking. There was nothing difficult about it. However, the elves that grew up were very terrifying. Just like this fire spirit general. If he were to fight with a martial king, he would be able to kill the martial king instantly. It was also because of this that Fang Yu wanted to know why the elf race, which was rarely seen in the profound sky world, came to the myriad spirit continent and even became the Flame City. What the hell was this? It's different from what I imagined. Fang Yu could not help but ridicule. We came from the elemental continent. Back then, we fought with a group of hostile dark elves. The result was too intense. Due to the changes in heaven and earth, we were sucked into a chaotic space. Elves have a long lifespan, but we have always been wandering in the chaotic space. Gradually, many of our people died. After all, the chaotic space is very different from the elemental continent. The fire spirit general explained everything in detail. The elemental continent. It's a completely new plane. Fang Yu thought to himself. In short, the story of this group of fire spirits was a tragic story. Many of their people died. After that, they fell into a deep sleep, woke up, and continued to sleep. After many of their people died, they found themselves at the Azure Dragon Mirror. Along the way, they did not even know which civilization built a city here. This is a little strange. However, there is no lack of strange people in the 4 great academies. Perhaps the higher-ups of the Azure Dragon Institute felt that there must be some treasure in this place, so they purposely used the power of the Azure Dragon Mirror to build a city and a formation tower. The awakening of the fire spirit race happened a long time later. Most of the information they knew came from the students who participated in the selection. Naturally, they did not know the truth. Fang Yu fell into deep thought. In fact, if Fang Yu were to think about it alone, he wouldn't have thought of this. Unfortunately, he had learned about the Azure Dragon Academy in advance, and he also knew some inside information about the elves. Thus, it was not difficult to deduce this result. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to detect and break the elves' disguise without knowing how they cast spells. However, Fang Yu didn't expose him immediately. Instead, he continued to ask, How many people do you have left? There are less than 1,000 left. Most of them are in deep slumber. The Fire Spirit General said sorrowfully. Too many of their clansmen had died. There were originally 100,000 fire elves, but now there were less than 1,000 left. It was simply tragic. Then your elf king. Fong Yu raised his eyebrows. The relationship between the elf king and the elf clan was interdependent. The stronger and more prosperous the elf clan was, the more they could feed the elf king. The stronger the elf king was, the more benefits he could bring to the elf race. The two complemented each other. However, there were less than 1,000 of their clansmen left. It was easy to imagine the situation of their elf king. In the profound sky world, although Fong Yu had obtained the inheritance of the elf king, the problem was that the elf king was a maverick. He had achieved the position of elf king by chance. There was no clan to speak of. Naturally, there wouldn't be any collateral effect. My king will not live for long. The Fire Spirit General couldn't help but shed tears. The Elf King had wanted to save his clansmen many times. Unfortunately, the chaotic space was not something the Elf King could deal with. Not to mention, many of his clansmen had died in one go. His strength had been greatly reduced, and he was even more powerless. Could it be that there is one of your Fire Spirit General overseeing each of the 5 formation towers? Fong Yu rolled his eyes and said, No, there are only 4 Fire Spirit Generals now. The formation tower in the middle is where the king rests. The king has no more energy left. The Fire Spirit General's tone was sorrowful. Bring me to see your king, Fong Yu said. The Fire Spirit General was hesitant. Even if the person in front of him was also a king, it was not appropriate to bring a king to see another king who was on his last breath. Moreover, the one on his last breath was the king on his side. You are not the king. You don't know what your king is thinking. Bring me there quickly. Otherwise, there won't be time. Fong Yu had vaguely thought of a possibility. This set off a storm in his heart. However, he wasn't sure, because this kind of thing was somewhat inconceivable. However, it was rare for him to encounter it. Moreover, it was the right time, place, and people. There was no harm in giving it a try. After all, he wouldn't lose anything if he failed. All right, please. The Fire Spirit General hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Buzz, as the Fire Spirit General chanted, an entrance appeared out of thin air. The Elf Clan more or less has some talent in the area of space. Without the corresponding incantation, it would be a joke to try to barge in. Moreover, it would make them so agitated that they would burn jade and common stone. Fong Yu couldn't help but think. This was the hidden threat that the powerhouses of the Azure Dragon College had vaguely sensed. There was no doubt that Flame City had a huge secret. However, they had no way of taking it away. It would be a pity to destroy it directly. They could only leave it behind and wait for the fated person. In any case, there was an 80 to 90% chance that the people in the Azure Dragon Mirror were from the Azure Dragon College. Not now and not in the future. It couldn't be said that they were at a disadvantage. Otherwise, these benefits wouldn't be left with Fong Yu. Who is this person? Just as Fong Yu entered the entrance, a rebuke entered his ears. This was a female elf. Her aura was similar to the Fire Spirit General who had brought Fong Yu in. Clearly, it was another Fire Spirit General. This is another king. He wants to meet with our king. The Fire Spirit General who led the way braced himself and said. This kind of thing was against the rules. However, Fong Yu's attitude made it subconsciously retreat and agree. However, it was still somewhat fearful in front of its companions. After all, its actions were against the rules. You're crazy, the female elf general said angrily. The king is already at his last breath, and you still want to disturb? He doesn't seem to be a pure elf. The female elf general suddenly reacted. Wasn't Fong Yu a freaking human? Chapter 199. Since she was a human, Why did she call herself a king? Wasn't that nonsense? Humph! Seeing this, Fang Yu snorted coldly and unleashed the power of the Flame King's imprint in his soul. In fact, Fang Yu was very guilty, because the imprint passed down to him by the Elven King was still there after he came back from the dead, which was really unexpected. Moreover, before meeting this Fire Elf General, there was no reaction at all. Even Fang Yu himself did not notice this, which was even more strange. However, there was no turning back. Since Fang Yu was here, he had to find out. The best way to deal with elves was not to fight and kill, but to suppress the existence that was inferior to oneself according to one's own rank. This was true tyranny, true dominance. Similarly, if a guy could be safe and sound under such suppression, he would be absolutely terrifying, and it was highly possible that he would become the Elven King. However, this female Elven General was obviously not such a heaven-defying existence. As soon as Fang Yu's aura appeared, it was obviously targeted at her. She immediately broke out in cold sweat and could not stand still. Alice! The Fire Elf General who was leading the way was anxious. They were all from the same tribe, and they were family, friends, brothers, and sisters. Now that Alice was being suppressed by Fang Yu, she was extremely uncomfortable. How could she not be anxious? Alice gritted her teeth and refused to speak or lower her head. Bang! Immediately after, Alice could not bear the heavy pressure and directly fell to the ground. A Fire Elf General being suppressed to the ground was a great humiliation, but Alice did not have the slightest ability to resist. Alice! King! This Fire Elf General pleaded for mercy on Alice's behalf. I will be meeting your king soon. I will spare your life first. Fang Yu said calmly. The competition between elves was sometimes very harmonious, but sometimes very bloody. Since they were from the same tribe, it was natural to leave some leeway in everything. After all, the other party was very likely to be his distant relative, and the lifespan of elves was very long. It was not a good thing to really kill her. However, if they were not from the same tribe, it would not matter if they were killed in a frenzy. Henceforth, a debt of blood must be repaid in blood. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. In any case, based on Fang Yu's understanding of the elf race back in the profound sky world, some of their branches had been slaughtered to the point of extinction. Even so, this imprint of mine is very weak. I reckon it has something to do with my reincarnation on the myriad spirit continent. In short, the effect it can exert is limited. Fang Yu thought to himself. That's right, he didn't let Fang Yu go out of benevolence. If this continued, even Fang Yu himself wouldn't be able to bear it. It would be troublesome if they were exposed in advance. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty. The Fire Spirit General heaved a long sigh of relief. Their tribe didn't have many people left. Alice was a rare genius. If she died here, it would be a huge blow to the tribe. It was great that the king was willing to let Alice go. Alice didn't say anything, but after she got up, she made way for Fang Yu. For the time being, she acknowledged him and bowed her head. At this moment, Fang Yu finally got a clear look at where he was. Is this a space that you built yourselves? Fang Yu looked around and asked. This space that was opened up was very crude. That's right, elves were born with some spatial talents and abilities. However, there were only a few who could bring them to greater height. Without the strength of an elf king, it was impossible to create a space. After all, in the myriad spirit continent, only a martial sage could do it. The difficulty was definitely not low. Yes, our home was almost destroyed during our wanderings. If this continued, we might be wiped out while we were asleep. Therefore, the king opened up this space. When we woke up, it was already Flame City. The Fire Spirit General smiled bitterly. Fang Yu nodded slightly and didn't probe further. Even if it was the Fire Spirit General, it was destined to become weaker and weaker in the chaotic space. This was something that couldn't be helped. That was why Alice was suppressed by Fang Yu just now. Otherwise, if Alice's bloodline was strong, she would definitely be able to resist a little. It could only be that she was too weak and didn't even have the ability to resist. However, Fang Yu didn't have the intention to probe further. Based on the current situation, the Fire Spirit General's understanding was limited. There were more things that he had to ask the Elf King personally. Crackle! Lu Tianbing easily drove out the few fellows who had occupied the North Gate Formation Pagoda. These people were quite strong, but Lu Tianbing didn't hold back at all. With his strength and powerful spiritual weapons, there was no suspense. Not to mention that He Ping and Wang Zhong were supporting him. As long as one wasn't a fool, one wouldn't rashly start a conflict with them. Although there are many experts here, they don't seem to be interested in the secrets of Flame City. In other words, they have big plans and aren't willing to waste time and energy here? Lu Shuzhan couldn't help but think. That's right, there was a small team stationed near the North Gate Formation Pagoda, whose strength wasn't inferior to theirs. They had been here for a long time and didn't choose the North Gate Formation Pagoda. It wasn't that they were playing the game of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. They were really not interested in this place, and had no intention of exploring. This was very strange. They suddenly gathered here. Could it be that something happened that we don't know? Wang Zhong pondered for a moment and said, "Actually, the best thing to do was to ask them directly." However, these unfamiliar experts were definitely not weaker than them. Moreover, they were in a group. If they really attacked, they wouldn't be able to gain an advantage. Although they didn't become the target of public criticism, they still attracted a lot of attention. The hunter would shoot the bird that sticks out. It wasn't a good thing to continue attracting attention. Because this was only the first day. They still had to stay here for a month. There was no need to be so anxious. Fang Yu and the rest are at the South Gate Formation Pagoda. He Ping said. The whereabouts of Fang Yu and the rest weren't a secret. Kegu'er's name was on the rankings and he had already defeated a few waves of invaders. Although there was no lack of Mo Ling's help, their names had spread quickly. However, there was no news of Fang Yu. It wasn't hard to deduce that Fang Yu and Feng Yaoguang had gone to investigate the secrets of Flame City, leaving Kegu'er and Mo Ling behind to look after their home. They are really loyal to Fang Yu, knowing that Kegu'er and Mo Ling were willing to look after Fang Yu's home. Lu Shuzhan's tone was somewhat sour. The barbarian race definitely worshipped expert. Mo Ling was from the Tianji Hall and her ability to take advantage of opportunities was top-notch. However, they had all chosen Fang Yu and were loyal to him. Wasn't this saying that she, Lu Shuzhan, was far inferior to Fang Yu? Chapter 200. Thinking of this, Lu Shuzhan's mood worsened. Sister, Fang Yu only left 2 people behind. It's impossible for them to defend the South Gate Formation Tower. Lu Tianbing comforted her. No, they can defend it. Lu Shuzhan gently shook his head. Let's not talk about Kegel first. Mo Ling does have such a method. However, unless absolutely necessary, Mo Ling will not use such a method. Firstly, the price is too high. Secondly, Kegel also has a trump card. Therefore, Mo Ling will not take action unless he squeezes out all of Kegel's value. Should we take the initiative to interfere? He Ping asked. They were supposed to be in the same boat. The problem now was who would be the captain. The person she supported was Lu Shuzhan. Then, she would make Fang Yu fail. He Ping's cultivation path was different from ordinary people. She wouldn't think too much about it. If she couldn't achieve it and win, she would crush it with a punch. No. We'll still work together. Lu Shuzhan rejected this suggestion. She and Fang Yu were only competing for the captain's position. There was no absolute conflict of interest. In other words, it wouldn't be too bad. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain later. He Ping respected Lu Shuzhan's opinion. In fact, if it wasn't necessary, He Ping was also unwilling to fight with Fang Yu. This was because Fang Yu gave her a mysterious and terrifying feeling. If she didn't have the confidence to kill such a person, it was best not to offend him. Otherwise, she would be looking for trouble. One had to know that Fang Yu was someone who had survived after facing an evil demon. And she, He Ping, was being controlled. This kind of thing, just thinking about it made her shudder with fear. Rumble, accompanied by a loud sound, Fang Yu saw the figure behind the door. The Fire Spirit King. This was a figure covered in flames. Its aura was very strong but also very weak. It was weak because its life was about to come to an end. It was strong because its energy was about to go berserk. The Fire Spirit King, whose life was about to end, had no confidence in controlling its own energy. "You are," the Fire Spirit King slowly opened its mouth. This was a spirit language. In fact, the Fire Sprite General and the others mostly spoke the sprite language. However, Fang Yu's body was engraved with the Elven King's mark, so it could be converted automatically. It was puzzled because Fang Yu's aura was clearly that of a human. However, such a person had the aura of the Elf King. What was going on? "I am not the Elf King of the Elemental Continent." Fang Yu briefly recounted his experience. The Fire Elf King seemed to have understood something. "I see. I know about the Myriad Spirit Continent because many humans have come here in search of fortune. However, we don't have the ability to break out. There are more powerful existences in this place with more powerful means. Not to mention that I have so many people with me, even if I'm alone, I don't have absolute confidence in leaving." Fang Yu nodded slightly. The Azure Dragon Academy had many tricks up their sleeves, and their strength was self-evident. At the very least, to the current Fang Yu, the Azure Dragon Academy was definitely a colossus that could not be shaken. This Fire Elf King, who was on the verge of death, was right not to rashly break through. Otherwise, to these Fire Elves, death and injury would be considered light. If they were locked up for research because of their small numbers, they would probably be better off dead. After all, the elves in the Myriad Spirit Continent, even if there are any, there are very, very few of them. They are out-and-out rare goods, Fang Yu thought to himself. "Then, you came to see me for..." The Fire Elf King went back to the topic. It did not believe that Fang Yu had come here for a tour. "I want your Elf King's mark." Fang Yu took a deep breath and said. The Elf King's mark was quite a rare thing. Although in a sense, it could not be obtained from two Elf King's marks. This was something that could command an entire race. It could not be casually given away. However, in the Elf King's mark that Fang Yu obtained, there were some special memories. It was not easy for the elves to advance. However, if there was a chance to obtain two Elf King's marks of the same race, it might be possible to advance in another way. Another way, Fang Yu deliberated over this word. He was a little excited and a little excited. Above the Elf King was the Elf Emperor. Elf Emperor. Even 100 Elf Kings might not be able to give birth to an Elf Emperor. Moreover, at the level of the Elf Emperor, many things have undergone a qualitative change. It can't be compared. Although the chances are very small, if I really become the Elf Emperor, Fang Yu could not help but think a lot. It was not up to him not to think. It was because if he could obtain such a trump card, such a great killing weapon, in various senses, it was extremely rare. Elf King's mark. Don't you already have one? The Fire Elf King asked doubtfully. This was because it did not understand why Fang Yu wanted to see it. Generally speaking, no Elf King would think of obtaining another Elf King's mark. Although there were some evil techniques in the Elemental Continent that claimed to be able to forcibly fuse with the Elf King's mark. However, this kind of thing had too many drawbacks, and the probability of failure was too high. In addition, Fang Yu was already an Elf King. In that case, what was the point of having another Elf King's mark? "I want to use this to try to become the Elf Emperor," Fang Yu said seriously. "What?" The Fire Elf King thought that it had heard wrongly. Using 2 Elf King's marks to become the Elf Emperor. What kind of method was this? It was simply unorthodox. The elf clan of my lineage is different from the elemental continent. It is more difficult to level up. Therefore, sometimes we seek some changes and find another way. Fang Yu answered truthfully. Originally, he wanted to bluff his way out of it. However, on second thought, the other party was about to die. If he still beat around the bush, he was afraid that the gains would not make up for the losses. Instead, it would cause him more trouble. Therefore, he might as well tell the truth. He wanted to see if the other party was willing to give him the Elf King's mark. The Fire Elf King hesitated. If Fang Yu were to be vague, even if he was on the verge of death, he would still reject him. What else was there to say to a guy who did not even speak honestly? However, Fang Yu told the truth. This made the Fire Elf King hesitate. Actually, aren't you holding on so bitterly for the sake of these elf clan members? Fang Yu changed the topic. What do you want to say? The Fire Elf King revealed a deep gaze. I don't want to say anything. I just want to express that since this is the case, why don't you entrust these elf clan members to me? It's good to have a deal. It's good to give them a chance and hope. Fang Yu said word by word. This made the Fire Elf King's breathing quicken. It was not that he had not thought about what Fang Yu said, but he did not expect Fang Yu to take the initiative to say it. Chapter 201. After all, the Fire Spirit King had lived for a very long time. It had great wisdom and experience. It knew very well that if it took the initiative to reveal its purpose, it would be at a disadvantage in a conversation. Because of this, even though it had more or less guessed the purpose of Fang Yu's visit, it did not take the initiative to reveal it. It did not expect Fang Yu to take the initiative to mention it. Although Fang Yu wanted the Spirit King's seal, it was also unexpected. The Spirit King's seal is very important to an Spirit King. The Fire Spirit King finally calmed down and said, Once it is lost, it will probably die very quickly. Fang Yu nodded. Because of this, Fang Yu mentioned the issue that concerned the Fire Spirit King the most. The elves. It could be said that in its current state, if it was not for its people, it would have died long ago. The Fire Spirit King was holding on bitterly because once it died, the space that it had opened up would most likely collapse. Even if it did not collapse immediately, it would be a matter of time. At most, in a year and a half, these elves would be exposed to the Azure Dragon College. It was not that the Azure Dragon College was bad or anything, but the elves were rare in the myriad spirit continent. Once it was targeted by some powerhouses, it would not be a good thing. There was a high chance that it would be in deep trouble. He did not believe that the Fire Spirit King would dare to take the risk. However, with the Fire Spirit King's situation, it had to take the risk. After all, there was only one choice. Indeed, the Fire Spirit King's seal could be passed on. However, Fire Spirit generals like Alice and the others were not qualified enough. They did not even have the chance to pass it on. Now, the Fire Spirit King had another choice. Fang Yu. If it gave the Fire Spirit King's seal to Fang Yu, then there would be another possibility. Fang Yu would replace the dying Fire Spirit King and protect these elves who were swaying in the wind and rain. You can protect my people? The Fire Spirit King asked again. In fact, if the Fire Spirit King's seal was not passed on until it died, there was a high chance that it would disperse and then feed back to its people. However, in terms of meaning, this was too wasteful. The Fire Spirit King's seal was used in this aspect was insignificant. Therefore, Fang Yu's words moved it. Not only do I have an Elven King's imprint, but I'm also a human. In this place, it's reasonable and legal. There are many ways to deal with this matter. Fang Yu said confidently. The Fire Spirit King remained silent. It wasn't that it suspected Fang Yu. What Fang Yu said was most likely true. That was something it could tell. However, even though it was prepared to be annihilated, it still couldn't help but sigh when the moment came. Especially when he thought about how he had been homeless in the chaotic space for many years. Finally, his eyes regained their clarity and he looked straight at Feng Yu. Even if I agree to your request, the seal of the Elf King has an innate ability, and it might not accept you. The Fire Spirit King voiced his worries. If he didn't accept it, the Elven King's mark would vanish, and Feng Yu wouldn't get any benefits. Would he turn a blind eye to his people? I can swear on my Elven King's mark, Feng Yu said seriously. This was a very strict oath. To the elves, the Elven King's mark was undoubtedly the warrior's Taoist heart. If a person deceived his Taoist heart and went against it, he would definitely not have a good ending. Although Feng Yaoguang didn't do this willingly, her Taoist heart was still shaken, and the impact was huge. Seeing this, the Fire Spirit King nodded and said, "Okay, I agree." Hearing this, Feng Yu immediately swore on his Elven King's mark that he would be responsible for this tribe of fire spirits until they didn't need him to take care of them. The Fire Spirit King took a deep breath and said, "This space is said to be created by me, but in general, it's a treasure." Feng Yu's eyes widened when he heard the Fire Spirit King's narration. To put it simply, when the Fire Spirit King created this space, he considered many things, including the future. Therefore, this space was actually designed to be something similar to a mini grotto heaven. As long as Feng Yu could inherit its Elven King's mark, he would be able to control this place. At that time, he would be able to leave with his people. It said so much mainly because it believed in Feng Yu and the backup plan it had left behind. If a human warrior left with this thing, ordinary people would not be able to find any clues. Moreover, this thing should be of great use to Feng Yu now. For this reason, Feng Yu would do his best to protect his people. Thinking of this, it completely relaxed its mind. It had nothing to worry about. If it fails, Feng Yu could not help but ask. If it failed, what would happen? This was a very important matter. If it fails, I'll directly graft this thing onto your Elven King's mark. The Fire Spirit King replied. Will this work? Feng Yu asked hesitantly. There's a certain chance of failure, but if I don't do this, this place will immediately be exposed because it's not perfect and still has many flaws, the Fire Spirit King said slowly. Now, it and Feng Yu's positions were reversed. It had decided to give this thing to Feng Yu. It had told him all the advantages and disadvantages. Should he really accept it? Feng Yu had no other choice. He had already sworn to the Elven King's mark. Could he go back on his word? Feng Yu took a deep breath and said, "Then, let's do it." Flame City, Central Formation Tower. The people stationed here were some young martial Grand Masters who had been in the limelight during the preliminary selection. There were men and women among them. Their strength was not bad. On average, they were around 4 or 5-star martial grandmasters. Although 4 or 5-star martial grandmasters were not advanced martial grandmasters, they had a certain amount of potential. It was mainly because they could talk and distribute benefits among themselves. Therefore, these men and women occupied the central formation tower the moment they arrived. Until now, no one had challenged them. Even if they could defeat 1 or 2 4 or 5-star martial grandmasters, what about 8 or 10 of them? How could they fight? But just a moment ago, all of them had sensed a wave of unusual fluctuations. They looked at each other and did not speak for a while. It was not difficult for them to sense the special fluctuation, but they could not find the source of the fluctuation. Could it be that the secret of Flame City is about to be revealed? A woman in a white shirt and pants said excitedly. The reason why the semi-finals of the 4 academies were talked about so enthusiastically was because there was a chance that some ownerless inheritances could be found in the semi-finals and then soar to the sky. Chapter 202. Although the chances were slim, there was still a possibility. At least in every second round, there would be a few lucky ones who would break through to the martial spirit realm first. Although this is just the beginning, to be able to break through to the martial spirit realm first is undoubtedly one step ahead of the rest. Hearing this, many people began to daydream. There are too many warriors here. They might not fight with us for the central array tower, but for the inheritance, it's hard to say. A slightly aged man said coldly, "The most important thing is to fight for this kind of secret and inheritance. There will be a lot of fighting. Do you want to show your trump card right from the start?" These experienced words caused them to be bewildered. That's right, if they were to fight, no one would be able to escape unscathed. When the time came, it would be a showdown of various methods and treasures. However, today was the first day of the second round. To cause such a big commotion on the first day. Was it really okay? However, it's not like we don't have a chance. Everyone knows that the 5 array towers each have their own secret. We're already close to the water and enjoy the moonlight first. Furthermore, there are many people here who won't act unless they see a rabbit. We're not afraid that they will fight with us before the inheritance appears. The aged man smiled and said, "There's movement." Lu Xuanzhan slammed the table and stood up, his breathing rapid. "There's already a reaction on the first day? Did they find something? How lucky was that?" Although they couldn't be sure if it came from them, it was a good thing that there was movement. "Let me search for it." After Lu Tianbing finished speaking, he took out an item and quietly floated on the ground. It was like a disc, but it emitted a white light as if it was sensing something. "This is from the underground?" Lu Xuanzhan understood some of the information from the disc and was stunned. Underground. Everyone knew that if there was any secret, it would definitely be under Flame City. Then there was another problem. They were only martial grandmasters. It was impossible for them to dig 3 feet into the ground. Although Fang Yu had done this before, he had used some special spiritual weapons from the Jinbao Tower. These special spiritual weapons were also known as industrial spiritual weapons. They were not used for battle, but for mining. This kind of thing took up a lot of space, and wasn't of much use to the second round examination. Thus, no one would purposely bring it with them. Not to mention, the name Flame City was closely related to the fact that this place was filled with the power of fire. Who knew if there was an endless amount of lava below? If they were to dig it out, they would be wiped out. What's more, this place is protected by a formation. With our abilities, it's impossible for us to dig down. Lu Xuanzhan gave up this idea. "Let's wait and see," Lu Xuanzhan said to the crowd. For now, this was the only way. Could it be Fang Yu's doing? Kegel was shocked. He had just discussed Fang Yu with Mo Ling. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, there would be such a commotion? This person was too good at stirring up trouble. Most likely, Mo Ling said with a grin. Then Kager was tempted. "I advise you to give up on this idea," Mo Ling said as she played with her long hair. "Why?" Kager was not convinced. "Fortune belongs to those who are fated to obtain it." "You said that it belongs to those who are fated to obtain it. Are you the fated one?" Mo Ling rolled her eyes and said, "Fang Yu is the fated one. You won't have a good ending if you try to extort him. Fang Yu will hold a grudge against you. That's not good." After hearing Mo Ling's words, Kager hesitated. Honestly speaking, Fang Yu was not a petty person. However, Kager had deliberately snatched Fang Yu's fortune and ruined Fang Yu's fortune. It was easy to imagine whether Fang Yu would take revenge on him in the future. After all, they were not saints. Moreover, a martial sage is not necessarily magnanimous. Thinking about this, Kager could only sigh. "All right, I hope that Brother Fang Yu will compensate me in the future. Don't worry, I can vouch for Fang Yu's character. Otherwise, why do you think I would follow him everywhere?" Mo Ling said with a smile. Kager was enlightened and could not help but look at Mo Ling a few more times. The eternal number 2 of the younger generation of the secret heaven hall was indeed capable. What's going on? In the elf race's space, apart from Alice, the other fire elf generals had all arrived. Others might not be able to detect the changes here, but they could because the movements that spread out were actually the aura of the elf king. Something had happened to their king. Seeing this, Alice told him everything that had happened before. Klein, another fire elf general, knocked one of his companions to the ground. This was the fire elf general who had brought Fong Yu here. Claire's face was filled with bitterness. He did not know what to say. At this point, he was also somewhat regretful. He had originally thought that Fong Yu's arrival might be able to lighten their king's burden, or something. He did not expect such an outcome. Their king, who was on the verge of death, was about to die. Originally, he might have been able to struggle at death's door for a few decades. Now, he had directly died. It was easy to imagine what had happened. They wanted to go in and see what had happened. Unfortunately, this space was completely controlled by the Fire Elf King. They were only Fire Elf generals and did not have the ability to barge in. Buzz, suddenly, the fluctuations within the door changed. It became very mysterious and very high-spirited. They looked at the door in disbelief. What had happened inside? Why was there such a sudden change? They suddenly noticed something, and their expressions changed drastically, because there were originally two kinds of fluctuations inside. One belonged to Fong Yu, and the other should belong to their king. However, now that one of them had disappeared, and the other had become stronger, what had happened? Rumble. The tightly shut door slowly opened, and a figure slowly walked out. As soon as this figure appeared, they all subconsciously prostrated themselves on the ground. Although they did not dare to look directly at him, they could be sure that the person who walked out was not their king, but Fong Yu. This was a human warrior with the Elf King's mark who was brought here by Klein. Their king had fallen. However, before they could feel sad, they were filled with another emotion called shock. It was because the aura released by Fong Yu was still above their king. They did not even dare to think about what was above the Elf King, because in the elemental continent, this kind of supreme existence was very rare. There were not many existences in the elemental continent. How could they appear here? However, now the Elf Emperor was born. Chapter 203. Elven Emperor. This title reverberated in everyone's heart. That's right, the Elven Emperor was an existence above the Elven King. Moreover, this kind of existence was extremely difficult to be born. Usually, 100 Elven Kings might not be able to give birth to an Elven Emperor. Because it was too difficult. Fong Yu didn't say anything. The power in his body was constantly going berserk, and he needed to focus all his attention to suppress it. It's too difficult. The fusion of two Elven King's marks, and they're of the same race, is actually so risky. Fong Yu felt a lingering fear. Could he say that he was almost burned to ashes? However, the moment he was burned to ashes, Fong Yu came back to life again. That's right, Fong Yu was reborn from the ashes and became stronger. The body of a fire spirit emperor, Fong Yu muttered to himself. This was a kind of constitution. In fact, in the Great Thousand World there were endless constitutions. This was one of the embodiments of bloodline. Of course, the embodiment of bloodline was not limited to this. This was just one of them. However, there were many fire-type constitutions in the myriad spirit continent. The problem was, there shouldn't be a fire spirit emperor's body. Even elves were rare in this place, let alone the Elven Emperor. Get up, Fong Yu said lightly. Hearing this, the few fire spirit generals were bewildered. Although they were sad, it didn't prevent them from recognizing that Fong Yu's aura was that of a fire spirit emperor. You've advanced to a fire spirit emperor? Klein asked carefully. Among the few fire spirit generals, Only Klein could be said to have some relationship with Fang Yu. The rest, including Alice who was taught a lesson, were unfamiliar with Fang Yu. They didn't even have a good relationship with him. Therefore, in this situation, it could only ask him. Yes, Fang Yu nodded slightly. I've accepted your king's will and become the new leader of your race. After a pause, Fang Yu continued, I'm the Fire Spirit Emperor. Fang Yu. Your Highness Fang Yu. The few Fire Spirit generals knelt down to show their respect. I know that you're unfamiliar with me, and you're even dissatisfied with me. Fang Yu talked to himself. This was certain. With the arrival of Fang Yu, their elf king had finally fallen. Just because of this, even if Fang Yu was the Fire Spirit Emperor, they still couldn't be happy. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Fang Yu's words made the Fire Elf generals look at each other in bewilderment. What did he mean by that? I have reached an agreement with your king. I will protect you until you can establish yourselves on this myriad spirit continent. If possible, I will send you back to the elemental continent. Fang Yu said seriously. Although he did not say it, Fang Yu already knew that once one reached the martial emperor realm, one would stand at the peak of the myriad spirit continent. If one wanted to take another step forward and break through to the 9-star martial emperor realm, one would inevitably have to shatter the void and travel to other planes. Time and time again, one would have to perfect one's Tao in different worlds, planes, and continents. Although there might be some discrepancies in the sayings of different planes and different worlds. However, there was no doubt that all Daos would return to one, and all paths would lead to the same destination. This, the Fire Elf generals were extremely excited. Now that they were safe and could return to the elemental continent in the future, this was great news for them. But before that, all of you have to listen to my orders. Fang Yu said seriously. Of course. If your Majesty can guarantee our safety, and send us back one day in the future, I, Klein, and the Fire Elf generals will naturally be loyal to your Majesty. Klein said solemnly. First, tell me who you are. Fang Yu said lightly. Other than Claire who led the way and Alice who first spoke to him, he didn't know the names of the others. Your Majesty, my name is Audrey. Your Majesty, my name is Gerard. There were 4 Fire Elf generals, 2 men and 2 women. Tell me about your abilities, Fang Yu asked. The Elf King's mark was the foundation for his rise in the Tianxian world, but it was only the foundation. Fang Yu walked the path of cultivation, and the abilities of the Fire Elves were only supplementary. My ability is Flame Transformation, Klein said. Flame Transformation? Fang Yu muttered to himself. When a Fire Elf became a Fire Elf general, in addition to his innate talent, he would also receive some additional abilities as a reward. Flame Transformation could be considered a good ability among the Fire Elves, but in the long run, it was still ordinary and far from enough. In other words, Klein's talent was limited. My ability is Flame Critical Strike. Alice took the initiative to say. Flame Critical Strike. Fang Yu's eyes lit up. This was a kind of weakness attack similar to the Heavenly Sun 9-blade. It was a targeted method to strengthen the attack and was very rare. And talent can affect the Fire Elves, or the two can affect each other? Fang Yu couldn't help but think. Because of this, Klein's temperament was more gentle, while Alice was more violent. My ability is Flame Transformation, Audrey said confidently. In fact, it was worthy of confidence and pride. Because Flame Transformation was very strong. It possessed an ability known as penetration. The Tianxian world, the elemental continent, and the 10,000 spirits continent have many similarities. Indeed, all methods lead to the same destination. Fang Yu's eyes became clearer. Compared to now, he really felt that he was too naive and backward in the Tianxian world. Although he had good fortune, he still didn't know much about cultivation. Now, Fang Yu dared to say that if he was born in the Tianxian world, even if he only had the same resources, he would have higher and greater achievements. What about you, Gerald? Fang Yu asked the last fire elf general. My ability is flame stickiness. Gerard told the truth about his ability. Flame stickiness, in Fang Yu's memory, was similar to flame transformation. It wasn't that they weren't powerful, but they needed a strong foundation to be able to exert their strongest power. However, if they really had such ability, the effect of flame critical strike or flame transformation was undoubtedly more direct. However, to be able to advance to Fire Elf General meant that their aptitude wasn't bad and they were promising talent. Previously, they had been trapped and didn't have the chance to shine. Fang Yu was looking forward to seeing how they would perform after they served him. Then, the last thing is to collect the Ring of the King of Elves. Fang Yu looked around. Yes, this open space was called the Ring of the King of Elves. A more accurate description was the Ring of the King of Elves. Chapter 204. All of you have a good rest here. By the way, take a look at this thing and see if it's useful to you. Fang Yu took out a spirit stone with a flame aura and threw it to them. Spirit stones, other than having no attributes and being purely ordinary heaven and earth spirit energy, there were also all kinds of spirit stones with different attribute. This kind of spirit stone was more high-end, and low-grade spirit stones didn't have such an effect. However, for warriors there wasn't much of a difference, but for the elves, there might be some unexpected effects. Yes, Your Majesty. No. Your Highness Fang Yu. Sensing Fang Yu's expression, Klein quickly changed his words. Oh. Fang Yu couldn't help but take a few more glances at Klein. Indeed, in terms of talent or strength, Klein was definitely not the best among the 4 fire elf generals. However, when it came to reading people's body language and so on, he was much better than the others who were more talented. Klein didn't look at Fang Yu and directly tried to devour this fire attribute spirit stone. Buzz, as the fire attribute spirit stone gradually turned into powder, a faint red light appeared on the surface of Klein's body. Klein was shocked. This meant that the fire attribute spirit stone that he had just absorbed was of significant help to him. This layer of faint red light was the best explanation. Looks like it's similar to what I thought. Fang Yu muttered to himself. If the elves cultivated alone in the elemental continent, it would take a long time to advance. However, it was different in the Myriad Spirit Continent. The Myriad Spirit Continent was a rich place, and most importantly, there were all kinds of cultivation resources here. Spirit stones were hard currency and also the best representation. Now that he looked at it, it was indeed so. The fire attribute spirit stone could really promote the fire elf general's cultivation. Okay. I'll prepare some related resources and send them to you later. Fang Yu nodded slightly. You can wake up your clansmen one by one. Is it true? Your Highness Fang Yu, is this true? The one who spoke was Alice. It was a strong fire elf general. But before that, it was a fire elf. Looking at its own people, its own king, constantly sacrificing and dying for the survival of its race. Its heart was bleeding, but it was powerless. A fire elf general with outstanding talent was just a drop in the ocean for the current predicament. Now that Fang Yu had fused with their king's fairy king's imprint, they were naturally saddened. However, Fang Yu had become the fairy emperor and even promised to lead them out of their predicament. This gave birth to new hope in their hearts. Something like hope had not appeared for many years. Especially when Fang Yu casually gave out a fire attribute spirit stone, it believed that Fang Yu would be their savior, or even their new king. No, the new emperor. Alice's eyes sparkled. If it was on the elemental continent, the birth of an elven emperor meant that the status of their race would rise with the tide and reach a higher level. Therefore, if Fang Yu really had the ability to lead them out of their predicament, it was willing to accept this new emperor. Of course it's true. I, Fang Yu, am a man of my word. But I still have things to do now, so you guys should prepare yourselves. After Fang Yu finished speaking, he was ready to leave. Yes, Your Highness Fang Yu. After they respectfully sent him off, Fang Yu slowly disappeared. When Fang Yu opened his eyes again, he had already returned to the South Gate Formation Tower, and there was a bright red ring on his hand. The Fairy King's ring. I have to hide it a little. Fang Yu's eyes were filled with joy. He was in dire need of a top-notch storage treasure. However, this kind of thing could only be found by chance. If he spent money to buy it, he could only buy an enhanced version of an ordinary item, which was not very meaningful. However, the Fairy King's ring solved most of his problems. This was a space similar to a cave which could store living things. Fang Yu, what happened to you just now? Why couldn't I sense your existence? The dragon soul suddenly asked. Just as Fang Yu and Klein met, it fainted without any warning, or rather, it fell into a deep sleep for no reason. This was no small matter for the dragon soul. It was an existence that had once become a sage, and now it fainted without any warning. What was going on? Could someone explain? If there was, it would definitely be Fang Yu. I obtained the creation of Flame City. Fang Yu chuckled and said. He did not intend to hide this matter from the dragon's soul completely. The dragon's soul and the Void Rat had a deep relationship with him, and they were bound together for good or ill. Could he really hide it forever? It was impossible. Since that was the case, he might as well take the initiative to tell it. After that, Fang Yu simplified the story and told it to the dragon soul in shock. Fairy? I've read about it in the dragon race's secret manuals. The dragon soul was deep in thought. Fang Yu frowned. He had just mentioned it casually, so the dragon race had records of it? It was a very, very long time ago. In the ancient history of the dragon race, fairies were also called fairies. There was a very powerful expert among them who was on par with one of our dragon emperors. For a treasure, they fought fiercely. In the end, they even snatched the treasure and left through the void. I think they said they wanted to go back? The dragon's soul tried to recall. In fact, there were many such stories and unofficial histories. Be it the dragon soul or other dragon race, they all treated it as a small story and did not take it seriously. Other than that, there were many living beings recorded in ancient times. Now, there were no traces of them, so who knew if they were real or fake? Upon hearing that, Fang Yu could not help but have a guess. Could it be that this ancient fairy expert made a mistake while crossing the void and sent these fire fairies here? But in terms of time, there shouldn't be that much of a difference. It's just that the records in the dragon race's secret manuals are true. This means that some planes that have multiplied to the extreme have headed to different continents and worlds to replenish their deficiencies. It should be the same in the mysterious sky world. Fang Yu thought to himself. However, there were still many old farts left in the mysterious sky world. It could only be said that the requirements to cross the void in the mysterious sky world were very high. It was even more difficult than the myriad spirit continent. Otherwise, how could there be so many old farts who lived until the era of Fang Yu's rise? At the same time, Fang Yu also realized that the so-called 10 great experts, or those who were close to the 10 great experts, were actually nonsense. Would the real top 10 experts fall so easily? What a joke. As Fang Yu thought about it, he suddenly felt a burning sensation coming from the number plate. He took it out and his expression changed instantly. First place Fang Yu points, 1010. Chapter 205. What the hell is this? Fang Yu could not help but exclaim. F***ck. Other than the original 10 points, where did the 1000 points come from? There's also a hint. Finding the ruins and occupying the creation will give you extra points. The points will be provided by the Azure Dragon Mirror. Seeing this, Fang Yu understood everything. This was the fault of the Azure Dragon Mirror. This bastard must have done it on purpose. Ugh! At this moment, Feng Yaoguang woke up. What happened? Why did I faint? Let's go up first. There's a big problem. Feng Yu smiled bitterly. Feng Yu. Seeing Feng Yu come up, Mo Ling said excitedly, "You reached the top, you're first." What? Feng Yu reached the top? First? Feng Yaoguang's eyes widened. Since she woke up, she had been in a daze. Feng Yu did not tell her what happened just now. Now that Feng Yaoguang said that Feng Yu reached the top, what was going on? Brother Feng, did you obtain the creation of this place? I feel like Flame City is not that hot anymore. Kegu Air was also shocked. Feng Yu had only been in there for half a day, right? Yet, he obtained the creation? Since I obtained the creation of this place, the Azure Dragon Mirror gave me an extra 1,000 points. It must have done it on purpose, Feng Yu said helplessly. Through his interactions with the heart-cultivating forest, Feng Yu had come to understand that these highly intelligent existences had all sorts of strange thoughts and even hobbies. Heart-refining forest was a good example. Thus, the Azure Dragon Mirror, which was even more powerful than heart-refining forest, was definitely a stranger existence. However, Feng Yu did not expect things to turn out like this. He wanted to develop his strength, but in the end, he directly went up on stage. He was just short of telling everyone in Flame City that the creation here was obtained by him, Feng Yu. This was troublesome. Feng Yu? First? What the hell? There seems to be a label nearby. Obtaining the creation of the ruins can give you extra points from the Azure Dragon Mirror? Was it a new set of rules? Is it effective? It's definitely effective. You guys don't know this, but the Azure Dragon Mirror is an existence akin to a lord in the Azure Dragon Institute. It keeps its word. Since we've already said it, the Azure Dragon Academy has no choice but to admit it even if they're unwilling. Everyone had different opinions. In their excitement, they couldn't help but glance at Feng Yu's name a few more times. Because Feng Yu seemed to be in the South Gate Formation Pagoda. Feng Yu, you are indeed worthy of being my, by Wuxie's, enemy. However, now is not the time for me to make a move. I'll just watch the show. If you can't even get past this, then you're not worthy of being remembered by me, by Wuxie. Bai Wuxie, on the other hand, was not as excited as the others. He had seen what Feng Yu was capable of. He dared to say that even if it wasn't today, Feng Yu would sooner or later stir up 1,000 ripples in the semifinals. He just didn't expect it to be like this on the first day. However, only mediocre people wouldn't be jealous of them. Only such a Feng Yu was worthy of being called an enemy of Bai Wuxie. Feng Yu has reached the top. Lu Shuzhan didn't want to say anything. As for the movements of Feng Yu and the others, they had already discussed the matter and came to a conclusion. To deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo. After all, this was only the first day. There was no need to be so anxious. But how long had it been since they talked? It hadn't even been half a day, and Feng Yu had already jumped to first place. Was it really not a joke? Sister, I'll go take care of Feng Yu now. Lu Tianbing took a deep breath and said. He was serious. Feng Yu had already affected their interest. If they didn't get rid of him now, when would they? Although Lu Shuzhan had said that they were still on the same boat in the end, it was still necessary to take down Feng Yu's prestige. He Ping and Wang Zhong were also eager to give it a try. They had acknowledged Feng Yu's strength before, but they hadn't raised the level of Feng Yu to the point where they had to deal with him, to the point where they had to defeat him. But now they had already reached this point. They couldn't continue to hide their strength. Don't be anxious. Lu Shuzhan finally suppressed the anger in her heart. She had thought that she was already cautious enough when dealing with Feng Yu. In the end, Feng Yu was still Feng Yu. The unexpected Feng Yu. On the first day at the Great Dragon Lake, he dug 100 feet into the ground and dug out a dragon gate. Looking for opportunities in the dragon gate, He provoked evil spirit. However, Fang Yu was unscathed, while the evil spirit had escaped without a trace. In the heart-refining forest, everyone thought that there was something wrong with Fang Yu, that he was a traitor, but he still came out unscathed. This man seemed to be able to summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Everything was within his control and expectations. Including Lu Shuzhan, everything was within his control. It was a bad feeling. Lu Shuzhan was a typical martial artist with talent and wisdom. Compared to Lu Tianbing, she was smooth and slick and had a better future. However, after meeting Fang Yu, why did she lower her head in every aspect? Bai Wuxie, a rising star that even the Lu clan had to treat with respect, lost to Fang Yu, but was willing to be his fighter. Tianji Hall's number 2 in the younger generation, Mo Ling, took the initiative to get close to Fang Yu. She believed that the key to her defeat of the Azure Dragon Institute's senior sister was that monstrous. Kegu heir was from the barbarian tribe's royal family. He had a certain chance of inheriting the clan. He also favored Fang Yu more. Feng Yaoguang. Needless to say, she was just short of offering herself as his pillow. Moreover, Feng Yaoguang's Dao heart was unstable. It was very likely that she would warm Fang Yu's bed. But Fang Yu's character wasn't that despicable. He didn't take advantage of the situation. Now, it was Lu Shuzhan's turn to make a choice. Should she seethe with anger and find Fang Yu to settle the score, or endure for a while? In the end, she chose the latter. Fang Yu is already the target of public criticism. There are many people challenging him. We aren't Fang Yu's enemies, but those who challenge Fang Yu might become our enemies. Moreover, if the treasures here are taken away, these 5 array pagodas will at most control the array's switches. Their significance will be much smaller. We can find some time to go and see what's going on. I believe that everyone in Flame City is very interested in Fang Yu. Lu Shuzhan said seriously. This was the result of her suppressing her anger and careful consideration. It was a result that had many advantages and no disadvantages. Perhaps they could even take the opportunity to make Fang Yu lower his head, join them, and approve of Lu Shuzhan as the captain. Everyone thought about this and felt that there was nothing wrong with it. It was the best of both worlds. The inspectors looked at the orders and regulations issued by the Azure Dragon Mirror and were stunned. It had to be known that although the Azure Dragon Mirror would occasionally throw a tantrum and cause some problems, to say that he would give points to the martial artists participating in the selection, this was unprecedented. What should they do? Chapter 206. Let's report it to the Academy. Everyone discussed and finally decided to report it to the Academy. This was a serious matter. If something really happened, they would be the scapegoat. They did not want to be the scapegoat. They could only report it to the Academy and let the Academy decide. Little did they know that before they could inform the Academy had already sent a message. It was a message personally issued by Vice Principal Wang. Do as the Azure Dragon Mirror says. Hearing this, they looked at each other and replied with cupped fists, "We will follow the Academy's orders." Vice Principal Wang had always been cautious. Since he said it, it must be the Academy's decision. If the Academy's higher-ups think it's okay, then it's okay. The Azure Dragon Mirror's will is the Academy's will. This message echoed above the Azure Dragon Mirror. The Academy approved of the Azure Dragon Mirror's actions? It can't be. Although they were surprised by the Azure Dragon Mirror's decision and the Azure Dragon Academy's cooperation, they still revealed a look of joy after thinking about it carefully. In this way, wouldn't they have many more opportunities to increase their points? To be honest, they were envious that Fang Yu could get 1,000 points. However, they were all proud sons of the heavens from different places, dragons and phoenixes among men. They were not so narrow-minded and saw things in the future. Although directly speaking, Fang Yu had become the target of public criticism, It was also a good opportunity for them to take advantage of the situation. Fang Yu was silent. Why did the Azure Dragon Mirror do this? Is it to target me? It can't be. What virtue do I have? Fang Yu frowned. However, if the Azure Dragon Mirror did not do it on purpose, why did it happen to be him? He really did not understand. Fang Yu, I know you have a lot of doubts in your heart, but what I can tell you is that something like providence is not necessarily a good thing. Mo Ling suddenly said. Oh? You mean? Fang Yu looked at Mo Ling as if he was implying something. It means that having providence on you is a good thing. However, if you can't bear it, you will be devoured. Now that you have providence on you, you will be devoured again. Mo Ling said in a serious tone. I see. Then what do you think I should do? Fang Yu nodded slightly. This. Brother Fang, do you believe it? Kager asked in surprise. Wasn't this a little too casual? Isn't that why she stayed by my side? Fang Yu said as he shot a glance at Mo Ling. That's right, Mo Ling wasn't an ordinary girl. If they really had to compare, even Feng Yaoguang couldn't compare to her. There must be a very good reason why such a talented girl was willing to follow Fang Yu. Before he could achieve his objective, Mo Ling had harmed Fang Yu, which would be akin to drawing water with a bamboo basket. That's right, I definitely won't harm you, Mo Ling said with a grin. All you want is to defeat your senior sister? Fang Yu abruptly changed the topic. This is a short-term goal. The long-term goal is to become a martial emperor and establish my own divine nation. However, I have a premonition that you will probably become a martial emperor before me and establish your own divine nation. Mo Ling sighed. Then what do you want? Fang Yu asked with interest. I hope that after you become a martial emperor and establish your divine nation, you can make me a divine general for fun? Or give me a title? As she spoke, Mo Ling threw a coquettish glance. Fang Yu didn't take it seriously. A woman like Mo Ling needed to be treated seriously, but he couldn't be serious all the time. Otherwise, he would be led by the nose. Fang Yu naturally wasn't afraid of fighting with Mo Ling, but he didn't want to waste too much time with her. Thus, he shot a glance at Feng Yaoguang. Sister Mo Ling, it's not too late to talk about these things in the future. The most important thing right now is that Fang Yu suddenly reach the peak. There will probably be some trouble in the future, right? Feng Yaoguang said with a smile. Mo Ling nodded with a smile. She was actually just chatting with Fang Yu. Although Fang Yu was a person of great fortune, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage if he were to walk together with her. Although it was very difficult to become Fang Yu's woman, the partner of a martial emperor was usually called the empress. Mo Ling didn't think that she would become Fang Yu's empress, because she wanted to become a martial emperor herself. However, if she had a marriage with Fang Yu, she could use his strength to take another step forward. A title wasn't much. If a martial emperor wanted a woman, there would probably be a long line of people lining up to get her. However, after reaching the martial emperor realm, one would usually abide by one's heart and wouldn't be swayed by one's desires. There were even some martial emperors who were loyal to the martial Tao and didn't have a partner or children. These martial emperors were also very powerful. In any case, Mo Ling thought highly of Fang Yu. Outside the Southern Gate Formation Tower, it was bustling with activity. After the news of Fang Yu reaching the peak spread, many people no longer cared about the Formation Tower. Flame City didn't have any opportunities, so there was no need to fight for the Formation Tower. The reason for that was because their target had shifted to Fang Yu. Once I defeat Fang Yu, I'll be first on the list. This is a great opportunity to make a name for myself. I can't miss it. Yes, Fang Yu, get out here. Let's see if you have 3 heads and 6 arms. I heard that he's Bai Wuxia's opponent? I want to see how strong Bai Wuxia's opponent is. The crowd was discussing animatedly, causing some of the weaker martial artists to retreat. These people were too strong, and their auras were above that of a 3-star martial Grand Master. In some places, a martial Grand Master was equivalent to a local tyrant. However, here, a martial Grand Master under the age of 20 was worthless. Do you have any information on this Fang Yu? Yes. He's from Skylight City. He's on good terms with Zhenbao Tower's Feng Yaoguang. Feng Yaoguang's father, King Duobao, was once a graduate of Azure Dragon College. So he has some background. Then he's one step ahead because he's living off a woman? The crowd's discussion didn't stop. When Fang Yu walked out, the words, living off a woman, fell into the crowd's ears. Kegu stood behind them, and Yanran was their bodyguard. Walking in the middle was Fang Yu, with Feng Yaoguang on his left, looking docile and lovable. On his right was Mo Ling, who was smiling without showing his teeth. From afar, they really gave off the feeling of someone living off a woman. So you're living off a woman. I really didn't expect that. Mo Ling laughed out loud. However, her beautiful eyes looked as if she was showing off her love with Fang Yu. It was even more unbearable. All right, looks like I'll have to show you what I've got. Fang Yu took a deep breath and said. To be honest, his original intention was to grow up wretchedly. Making a big fuss on the first day was not within Fang Yu's expectations. However, since someone had made a move, he, Fang Yu, would take it. There was nothing to say. Chapter 207. Fang Yu did not lower his voice, and the crowd could not help but take a second look at him. From the looks of it, Fang Yu was really prepared to fight with everyone. Even if he is good at fighting, there are so many geniuses here. How many can he fight? 1 or 2? Or 3 or 4? Someone sneered. In fact, his thoughts were not without reason. Even if Fang Yu was strong, he was still not the strongest person in the arena. Taking a step back, even if he was the strongest person here, what could he do? Could he still defeat everyone here? I, Fang Yu, do not like to talk nonsense. If you want to challenge me, come. Fang Yu went straight to the point, and more people were eager to give it a try. However, according to the rules, you are not allowed to fight within the city-state, especially when it involves a large amount of points. Therefore, if you want to challenge me, other than paying your own points, you have to add some extra points. Fang Yu said seriously. What? Everyone was stunned, and they were confused about what Fang Yu was talking about. This is the rule that the Azure Dragon Mirror just announced. You can take a look. Fang Yu pointed at the token and said. Everyone quickly took a look. That was indeed the case. After announcing that there would be extra points for occupying ruins or obtaining fortunes, the Azure Dragon Mirror added another rule. It was what Fang Yu said. Within the city-state, no one was allowed to casually issue a challenge that exceeded 1,000 points. If one wanted to challenge, the other party had to agree. Otherwise, one would be punished by the Azure Dragon Mirror. Originally, Fang Yu thought that the Azure Dragon Mirror might be deliberately targeting him. Now, everything had come to light. The Azure Dragon Mirror was really playing with him. Is it treating this second round as a game? It's making things difficult for me, but it won't make me lose immediately. Interesting. Fang Yu thought to himself. At the same time, he swore in his heart that he would not let the Azure Dragon Mirror have a chance in the future. Otherwise, he would definitely teach the Azure Dragon Mirror a lesson. After all, the Azure Dragon Mirror was not as obedient and sensible as the heart-refining forest. Fang Yu, how dare you? A scholarly man stepped forward and said slowly. Audacious? A guy who doesn't live up to his name is just being bold. I, Fang Yu, am just being confident. Fang Yu said unhurriedly, You want to challenge me? Who are you? I am Kong Wanxian, a 7-star martial Grand Master. The Confucian man said seriously. As soon as he opened his mouth, an overwhelming aura of righteousness spread out. A scholar, some people were slightly moved. The martial Tao was only a general term, and it encompassed everything. The Confucian way was also quite famous. Many people cultivated it, and it couldn't be underestimated. It was just that Feng Xing's cultivation methods were different, and each had its own merits. Unexpectedly, a Confucian Tao cultivator came all the way to the Azure Dragon Academy. Kong Wanxian, huh? Good. If you want to challenge me, you have to give me something in return. Otherwise, I won't fight you. Fang Yu said unhurriedly. And if I don't? Kong Wanxian said with a confident smile. If you don't, are you a soft girl? Don't act cute. Fang Yu said seriously. Fang Yu's reaction caught Kong Wanxian off guard. In his opinion, it was rare for Fang Yu to stand up and deal with him. For the time being, he had resolved the first part of the dilemma. However, Kong Wanxian's idea was to stop Fang Yu from clearing his name. Then, even if Fang Yu won or lost, he would still lose face. Little did he know that Fang Yu really didn't play by the rules. The moment he opened his mouth, he made a scholar like him speechless. Are you still going to challenge me? If not, get lost. Don't waste our time here. Some people couldn't stand it anymore. It was true that scholars deserved respect, but sometimes, some of them dilly-dallying was really unbearable. Kong Wanxian was obviously such a scholar. Kong Wanxian's face flushed red. Helplessly, he took out an item and said, "This is the 3000 Lake Brush. Although it's not a powerful spiritual weapon, it has various mysteries. I can challenge you if I bet it." The 3000 Lake Brush is a good item. Blinking her eyes, Mo Ling replied, "This item was created by chance and refined. Although there are different grades, the grade of this one is pretty good. If we can obtain it, we'll only benefit from it." Good. Fang Yu nodded. When I establish my divine nation in the future, I'll put this item in my study. Hiss. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. What was wrong with this person? Establishing his divine nation the moment he opened his mouth? You're not even a student of the Azure Dragon Academy, and you're thinking so far ahead? Indeed, you don't need to spend money to daydream. You can have everything in your dreams. No. The 3000 Lake Brush is good, but it'll be inferior in the study of a martial emperor. Don't worry, after what you said today, when you become a martial emperor in the future, you won't have to worry about not having a good brush. Mo Ling said with a smile. That's reasonable. Fang Yu replied. His and Mo Ling's words not only made people more certain that Fang Yu was a guy who lived off a woman, but he was also deliberately showing off his love. Such a guy must die. Fang Yu, make your move. Don't lose in one round. Kong Wanxian said angrily. Come on. Fang Yu asked Feng Yaoguang and Mo Ling to step back. What? Kong Wanxian frowned. Did Fang Yu ask him to make the first move? You've already given me a brush, so I have to let you take advantage of me. You make the first move. Fang Yu's words made Kong Wanxian furious. He was the first to stand out, and he had the intention to promote himself. Now, not only did he not promote himself, but Fang Yu also showed off his love. More importantly, he was being looked down upon. You'll regret this, Kong Wanxian said word by word. He swore that he would pay back the humiliation Fang Yu left behind. Book of Haoren. Kong Wanxian circulated his cultivation technique, and an endless amount of righteous energy lingered around him. It's the Book of Haoren, one of the orthodox cultivation techniques of Confucianism. Someone recognized Kong Wanxian's cultivation technique and fell into deep thought. What did this mean? It meant that Kong Wanxian came from a powerful Confucian faction. However, Fang Yu directly raised his blade and attacked. Heavenly Sunrise. Fang Yu's blade directly tore through Kong Wanxian's righteous energy, causing blood to splatter everywhere, dyeing the faces of those who did not dodge in time. They were so stunned that they could not utter a single word. What just happened? Kong Wanxian, he lost? 1/instant kill. Those who saw Fang Yu's actions had a huge change in expression. Fang Yu was definitely not a 9-star martial master. His limit was only that of an 8-star martial master. An 8-star martial master had a lot of advantages against a 7-star martial master. However, was it possible? At the very least, if they asked themselves honestly, they would never be able to do such a thing. Chapter 208. This guy. The way they looked at Fang Yu had changed, and they could not help but take half a step back. In the beginning, there were all kinds of looks. Some were mocking, some were disdainful, some were jealous. After all, strength alone was not enough to obtain the good fortune. Sometimes, luck was the most important factor. But now, Fang Yu had taught them one thing. Fang Yu's ability to reach the top and become number one was definitely not due to luck. Fang Yu is so terrifying. Lu Xuanzhan's almond-shaped eyes widened. She did not expect Fang Yu to have such strength. Although Kong Wanxian had been killed in one strike, he was not weak at all. He was very strong. The things of Confucianism were weak at the beginning, but as one's cultivation increased, they would become stronger and stronger. Martial Grandmaster was the starting point to show one's strength. Therefore, Kong Wanxian was definitely not weak. Lu Xuanzhan also had a chance of winning against Kong Wanxian. He would not take Kong Wanxian head-on. However, now, Fang Yu had killed him in one strike. Too strong. Wang Zhong's pupils contracted. He and Fang Yu could be said to be in the same boat. It wasn't that he didn't know about Fang Yu's strength. Therefore, he did not fully support Lu Xuanzhan. In terms of strength, he approved of Fang Yu more. However, Wang Zhong preferred stability. No matter where Fang Yu went, he would be the eye of the storm. For example, now, who would have thought that before nightfall, Fang Yu had not only obtained the good fortune of Flame City, but also killed Kong Wanxian in one strike. He is very strong. His blade Dao is not inferior to my fist Dao. He Ping expressed her approval of Fang Yu. Her master was a martial grandmaster who had entered the saint realm in the fist Dao. Once she became a saint, she would have the talent of 2 saints. It would not be an exaggeration to say that she had a bright future. Therefore, He Ping's fist Dao was very orthodox. She would also have the chance to enter the saint realm one day. As such, He Ping could clearly see that Fang Yu's saber Dao was a pure saber Dao. She didn't mean that Fang Yu was the only authentic one. What she meant was that Fang Yu's saber didn't have any impurities. It was only a matter of time before he transformed and took another step forward on the path of saber Dao. How terrifying! She didn't believe that Fang Yu also had a master who had entered the saint stage in advance. If he did, Fang Yu probably wouldn't have submitted himself to Jinbao Tower. Therefore, the current Fang Yu was even more terrifying and powerful. Is he really that powerful? Lu Tianbing expressed his dissatisfaction. Lu Tianbing was a headstrong person. Other than his own sister, he would not give face to anyone else. Now that his companions had been intimidated by Fang Yu, he wanted to see if this Fang Yu was really that strong. Brother, you can't. Lu Xuzhan stopped Lu Tianbing. We are in the same boat as Fang Yu. Have you forgotten our purpose and mission? Sister, Lu Tianbing stared blankly, his anger subsiding. That's right, they participated in the selection this time for themselves, but also for the sake of their family. Their family's cooperation with Azure Dragon Academy was more or less related to their achievements. Indeed, Azure Dragon Academy had many partners. However, these collaborators did not necessarily have a permanent partnership. The reason was simple: there were too many wolves and too little meat. Everyone knew that doing business with Azure Dragon Academy was a sure win. Azure Dragon Academy was also willing to take care of these powers that had a strong relationship with the Academy. However, if the family's successors were weak, there would be other rising stars who would snatch some of the shares. Azure Dragon Academy would not allow them to be so ruthless. However, in the long run, it would definitely affect the family's future. At that time, many things would not be up to them. Currently, Lu family and Azure Dragon Academy were in a relationship where if they didn't advance, they would retreat. In other words, Lu Shuzhan and Lu Tianbing's performance this time was outstanding. Their status in Azure Dragon Academy was rising steadily. In the next 10 years, the Lu family and Azure Dragon Academy's business share would definitely not decrease but increase. As for what would happen after 10 years, it would depend on how far they could go. On the other hand, if they were mediocre, the Lu family's business would decrease. One step slower, one step slower. For a powerful family, the consequences were unimaginable. Lu Shuzhan would not allow her brother, Lu Tianbing, to make a move against Fang Yu, this kind of peerless and terrifying character. It would be fine if he won, but what if he lost? She couldn't afford to lose. Moreover, in her heart, she didn't feel that Lu Tianbing could really win against Fang Yu. She could only take a step back. I'll kindly accept it. Fang Yu kept the 3,000 lake pen and Kong Wanxian's points while saying to the stunned Kong Wanxian's friends, "Why aren't you helping him apply medicine? Even if I went easy on him, he's still bleeding like this. He'll still die. Don't harm me." Fang Yu's words woke them up. They hurriedly brought Kong Wanxian away and helped him apply medicine to prevent Kong Wanxian from really dying. After all, this was the first day of the semifinals. As long as Kong Wanxian recovered, he still had a chance to pass. Who's next? Fang Yu squinted his eyes and smiled. What he wanted was to kill the chicken to warn the monkey, lest these people coveted his points and obstructed him along the way. Now that someone as strong as Kong Wanxian had been killed by him, Fang Yu didn't believe that the other high-stage martial grandmasters would easily step up. No matter what, among these people who had gathered, other than some passers-by who were here to watch the show, there were some who wanted to take advantage of him to climb up. However, was he, Fang Yu, so easy to step on? He wasn't even afraid of falling to his death. Ding. Random mission. Defeat 10 challengers. Ding. Mission reward. Black level skill random learning voucher. Oh! Fang Yu's face lit up with joy. Skills and martial techniques were all about biting off more than one could chew. However, in this place, if he had a random learning voucher, it would undoubtedly be like entering a treasure mountain. For example, Mo Ling's Heaven's Secret Skill, Kager's Barbarian Tribe Royal Cultivation Skill, Kong Wanxian's Confucian Skill. These things couldn't be bought even if one had money. They couldn't casually sell these things that could be considered fundamental. However, with the random learning voucher, everything was different. Fang Yu could use the random learning voucher for his own use without anyone noticing. Moreover, the biggest difference between the Myriad Spirit Continent and the Profound Sky World is that if one wants to become a martial emperor, one has to use one's own body as a furnace to accommodate all the skills in the world. All skills return to one, and different paths lead to the same goal. This was Fang Yu's understanding of the Myriad Spirit Continent's cultivation system after he became the Fairy Emperor. Seeing that Fang Yu had achieved his goal of intimidating everyone, Mo Ling was about to say something to dissuade these people who didn't know what was good for them. However, Fang Yu cleared his throat and spoke first. "What's wrong? All of a sudden, no one is coming? Let me tell you, I, Fang Yu, am going to fight 10 challengers." Chapter 209. What? Shameless boasting. Brat, don't think that you're number one just because you defeated Kong Wanxian. Many people were angered by Fang Yu and started cursing him. They were all geniuses from different places. Even if they were wary of Fang Yu, it was impossible for them to be afraid of him. Therefore, it was no wonder that they were so angry when Fang Yu looked down on them. Fang Yu Mo Ling opened her mouth, surprised by Fang Yu's words. Wasn't that just drawing hatred and making things difficult for him? I know what I'm doing. After consoling Mo Ling, Fang Yu reached out and pulled Mo Ling and Feng Yaoguang into his embrace. Grinning, he said, "If you don't have the ability or the guts, then hurry up and scram. Don't get in my way." Everyone was furious. Why didn't they see that Fang Yu was like this before? Fang Yu's temperament doesn't seem to be like this. Wang Zhong was deep in thought. Is he doing this on purpose? He Ping asked. Maybe he wants to do something big. No matter who takes first place in the future, Fang Yu's performance today is unforgettable. This means that many people will remember Fang Yu, and that's not a good thing. Lu Shuzhan pondered for a while and said, according to Fang Yu's character, he won't allow these people to harass him. However, Kong Wanxian can only intimidate them for a while. It's far from enough to force these people away. So, he has to make enemies with so many experts? That's unwise. Lu Tianbing said coldly. As far as he was concerned, Fang Yu's provocation of the experts here was an irrational action. As the saying went, many ants could bite an elephant to death. Even someone as strong as him would be exhausted to death in the face of so many experts. Moreover, these geniuses were not as simple as ants. Fang Yu is too impulsive and doesn't care about the consequences. Although it's a gamble, he'll still profit greatly if he wins. Wang Zhong shook his head lightly. This was Fang Yu's only shortcoming. If Fang Yu did not have this weakness, he would definitely be the most ideal candidate for leader. Unfortunately, that's right. Fang Yu really fought 10 people today and retreated unscathed. I dare say that no one will provoke this demon for at least 7 days. Lu Shenzhan nodded. Both Mo Ling and Feng Yaoguang felt a little uncomfortable being hugged by Fang Yu. After all, they weren't really that intimate with Fang Yu. I didn't expect Big Brother Fang, Great Master Fang, to be so otherworldly. After a brief moment of discomfort, Mo Ling chuckled. This made Feng Yaoguang take another look at Fang Yu. In fact, when looking at a man who was too perfect and flawless, one would admire him from afar. However, when coming into close contact with him, this feeling of being out of reach would make one fearful. How could one not be fearful of a flawless person? However, Fang Yu was currently hugging and hugging. Although it was said that he was putting on an act, his slightly mischievous hands made the two women feel that this was a real person. A man of flesh and blood. I'm not a monk. How can I not have 7 emotions and 6 desires? Fang Yu smiled and said, however, the main thing is to put on an act so that they can get lost quickly and not hinder me from getting close to the two beauties. A man's mouth is a liar. Mo Ling rolled her eyes in response. If Fang Yu really cared about soft bodies, would he still be so distant from her? When she was useful, she would be at his beck and call. When she wasn't, even if she wanted to get close to him, she would be dismissed. This made Mo Ling feel a little unbearable. Although she was focused on cultivation and was a strong person, she was still a girl at the end of the day. How could she not hope for a powerful cultivator like Fang Yu to fall under her skirt? However, she didn't know that Fang Yu wouldn't even look at her. Although she was smiling, it would be a lie if she didn't curse him in her heart. Now, Fang Yu was still using such an excuse to brush her off. Did he really think she was a fool? Fang Yu was about to say something when someone walked out. Fang Yu, you're going to lose to me. A skinny man who looked like a skeleton said indifferently. He was hugging a sword wrapped in white cloth, but his entire body was black. At a glance, he looked majestic and awe-inspiring. Is he more handsome than me, Fang Yu? Fang Yu frowned. It wasn't a good thing to have his limelight stolen. It would greatly reduce the effect he was trying to create. Who are you? Mo Ling glanced at this person and asked, "I'm Sword Ghost." The person introduced himself. "Sword Ghost? Sword Tomb's disciple," someone exclaimed. Rumor has it that Sword Tomb's disciple came to participate in the selection. I didn't expect it to be true. Sword Tomb. Fang Yu was puzzled. His current body knew too little about the myriad spirit continent. Those who were slightly more famous, such as Fang Yu, were all dumbfounded. It's a hidden faction. They focus on Sword Dao, similar to Saber Tomb, which focuses on Saber Dao. Mo Ling said softly, "Sword Tomb's people are very powerful. It's just that they have too few disciples. Otherwise, they would be an extremely powerful faction in the myriad spirit continent." "I see. There's Saber Tomb." Fang Yu's eyes lit up. "I can tell that your saber technique came from the Heavenly Sun Saber Saint. He's also a disciple of Saber Tomb. He's the most outstanding one." Mo Ling nodded. "Is there a record of the Heavenly Sun 9 Saber in Saber Tomb?" Fang Yu asked curiously. His Heavenly Sun 9 Saber was incomplete. It seemed that he could ask the Super Slaughter System to help him complete it. However, it wasn't their first time dealing with it. They more or less knew the Super Slaughter System's temper. It would definitely ask for a sky-high price. Since that was the case, Fang Yu might as well work hard on his own. Who knows, he might really be able to find the follow-up move. Logically speaking, there is. Whether it's Saber Tomb or Sword Tomb, they've spent a lot of resources to nurture their disciples. Therefore, once a disciple achieves something, they have to repay the sect. Mo Ling said with a smile, "I can see that your Saber Dao isn't weak. Even if you join Saber Tomb, you still have a chance. At that time, you might not have to pay any price to obtain the next move of the Heavenly Sun 9 Saber. Moreover, the Heavenly Sun 9 Saber is definitely not in the top 3 in Saber Tomb. At most, it's in the top 10. The Heavenly Sun Saber Saint isn't the only genius from Saber Tomb since ancient times." Fang Yu fell into deep thought. Saber Tomb and Sword Tomb don't get along. Even if you have Sword Ghost, you might be able to gain Saber Tomb's favor. Mo Ling said in a mysterious manner. "Oh!" Fang Yu's eyes lit up. "There's such a thing. How unexpected." Chapter 210. Are you guys done blabbering on and on? Sword Demon was getting impatient. It was mainly because he had heard of the name Sword Tomb. That's right, Sword Tomb and Sword Tomb had always been archenemies and would not rest until one of them was dead. Now that the other party had repeatedly mentioned Sword Tomb and Sword Tomb, he must be talking about the grudges between them. As a disciple of Sword Tomb, he did not want others to gossip about Sword Tomb. "You can't wait to send me off?" Fang Yu slowly said, "Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. Come on." Arrogant and despotic. With that, Sword Demon was about to make his move. Hey, wait. Fang Yu suddenly stopped Sword Demon. "What now?" Sword Demon furrowed his brows. "Did you forget the rules I just mentioned? If you want to challenge me, you must first pay a wager and add on. Otherwise, you'll get 1,000 points if you win, and I'll get 10 points if I win. Wouldn't you be better off robbing me?" Fang Yu pointed at the half-dead Kong Wanxian. "Look at that sour bookworm." He even took out a piece of art called the 3,000 Lakes Quill as a wager. "I say, since you're from Sword Tomb, you should at least have some background. Otherwise, I won't fight you." Kong Wanxian, who had slowly regained consciousness after receiving first aid, spat out blood the moment he heard Fang Yu's words and fainted once more. The 3,000 Lakes Quill was one of the top 3 items in his collection. It was something he had obtained with great difficulty. Just like what Mo Ling had said, how could a treasure that could become a scholar's favorite be an ordinary treasure? However, Kong Wanxian had never imagined that he would be insta-killed by Fang Yu. It was rare for him to regain consciousness, and Fang Yu had used him as an example. He was so angry that he fainted once more. Brother Kong, what happened to you? Quick, continue with the first aid. Fang Yu, don't go too far. Kong Wanxian's companions could not stand it any longer and angrily berated him. Fang Yu was rather innocent. He had merely used an example, and it was a very warm one at that. It was a good opportunity for him to teach Sword Demon a lesson. If anyone wanted to challenge him, they would have to pay the price, and he could not just brush it off lightly. Who knew that Kong Wanxian would just wake up? You really can't blame him. Alright. Stop blabbering here. I'll let you guys rest together. Let's see who's going to save you later. Fang Yu said fiercely when he saw that they still wanted to blabber on and on. It had to be said that Fang Yu insta-killing Kong Wanxian with one saber strike still had some intimidating effect. At the very least, the few companions who knew Kong Wanxian's strength didn't dare to speak. They were afraid that Fang Yu would attack them. This small knife came from an old man from the saber tomb. He was too complacent and had his head chopped off. I just happened to collect this saber tomb. It's something that the saber tomb uses to collect spoils of war and evidence of missions. Although it's an ordinary spirit weapon, I'm afraid that the people of the saber tomb will be very angry that it ended up in our sword tomb. Sword Demon took out an item and chuckled. Fang Yu's brows twitched and he said, "This item is not bad. Alright. I promise you." Then come. Sword Demon opened his palm, and the white cloth loosened, revealing a strange sword. This sword looked like an iron awl. But would the people of Sword Tomb know how to use an iron awl? Interesting. Fang Yu's eyes lit up, and he drew his saber to attack. He was no longer a greenhorn. Naturally, he could tell that this Sword Demon was something. Crackle! Clang! In an instant, Fang Yu and Sword Demon exchanged a few blows. Sword against saber. Sword Demon's eyes widened. He originally thought that Fang Yu had just defeated Kong Wanxian with some luck. After all, Kong Wanxian's strength was not bad, but Kong Wanxian was too arrogant. Or rather, some scholars had such a temper. Being killed by Fang Yu was unexpected, but it was also within reason. However, he, Sword Demon, would not hold back against Fang Yu. The result? He did not gain much of an advantage. He's actually on par with Sword Demon. Mayan also came to watch the show. She would not challenge Fang Yu. To a certain extent, she and Fang Yu were on the same side. They were invisible allies and could be used at crucial times. However, Fang Yu's strength would determine who would be in charge if they really joined forces. One Kong Wanxian was not enough. Mayan and the others were the favored ones of the barbarians. In terms of talent and strength, they were stronger than Kager. They did not need to use their full strength to deal with a mere Kong Wanxian. This was the natural advantage of the barbarians, an advantage that came from their physical bodies. However, if it was Sword Demon, Mayan did not have absolute confidence that she could win against him. Sword Demon was good at using swords, and they were just flesh and blood. Although their strong bodies could be used as divine weapons, the martial grandmaster level was obviously not enough. If Fang Yu could defeat Sword Demon, it meant that he was a strong threat to them, and he had the qualifications to lead them. However, Mayan did not like being led. Heavenly Sun Rise. Weakness Exploit. Setting Sun Scorching Sun. Fang Yu executed the Heavenly Sun 9 saber moves one after another. Although there were only 4 moves, the momentum was faintly being formed. Bang! Fang Yu slashed down. Sword Demon did not have time to change his moves and could only meet force with force. Sword Demon? Go to hell. Get lost. Fang Yu took advantage of the moment when Sword Demon was blocking the attack and sent him flying with a kick. Boom! He did not hold back in this kick, and Sword Demon's blood was sent flying to the side. The whole place was dead silent. They were surprised that Fang Yu did not follow the routine. Why did he suddenly kick out when it was a proper clash of swords and sabers? It completely destroyed the beauty of the scene. Secondly, Sword Demon was a proud person. He would never allow himself to be sent flying with a kick. It could only be that Sword Demon did not have the ability to resist. After Kong Wanxian, did Sword Demon lose as well? For the first time, everyone paid attention to Fang Yu. Because although people like Kong Wanxian would not be looked down upon, they were far from the point of being afraid of him. However, Sword Demon was sent flying with a kick. This was worthy of their attention. Should they really let him fight 10 people or... Seeing this, Fang Yu felt uneasy. Did he go overboard? Were these people not that strong? What if they thought he was too strong and did not dare to challenge him? What would he do if he wanted to fight 10 people? What's wrong? What's wrong? No one dares to challenge me? I heard that a lot of strong people came to hunt for treasures. Now that I've taken the item and I'm first, don't you think that's infuriating? Are you guys convinced? Fang Yu said casually. At this moment, even Mo Ling and Feng Yaoguang could see that Fang Yu's attitude was a little off. They could understand that he had just finished off Sword Demon once and for all, but why was he provoking him now? There shouldn't be any benefits, right? Chapter 211. Fang Yu, Feng Yaoguang could not help but remind him. Quitting while he was ahead was undoubtedly the best choice right now. If he continued to provoke him, things would get out of hand. I know what I'm doing. Fang Yu still kept it a secret and did not reveal his motive. In fact, he did not know how to explain it either. However, he did not care about the process. He only wanted the result. The result was good, and that was enough. Fang Yu, if I win, other than handing over your points, you also have to return the things you took. Suddenly, a girl stood out. Her face was as cold as ice, and she was tall and slender. She was half a head taller than Fang Yu. So tall. But she's not from the barbarian race. Fang Yu was shocked. It's just that her legs are long. Oh right, I forgot to tell you. She's Xiao Yu from the Xiao family. She has a cousin who's very monstrous and powerful, but he didn't come to the Azure Dragon Institute. He probably went to the White Tiger Institute. Mo Ling said with a smile. You're really a know-it-all. Do you know everything? Fang Yu could not help but ask. No, can't you see that I can't see what you're thinking? Mo Ling sighed. Alright, I'm going to fight. Miss Xiao Yu, what do you want to pawn? Fang Yu cleared his throat. I don't need to pawn anything because I'll definitely win. Xiao Yu's words revealed her strong confidence. Even Fang Yu could not help but take a few more glances at her. You mean, if I win, I can take whatever I want? Also, you want me to return the 3,000 lake brush, the dagger from the knife grave, and the things you wanted to pawn. A total of 3 things. Fang Yu said slowly. Xiao Yu was not bad-looking. Her legs were very long, and her personality was like a huge iceberg. She was a living example of an ice beauty. However, Fang Yu was also someone who had seen the world. At this time, he would not be protective of the fairer sex. You're really heartless. But look at my legs, they're not much shorter than Xiao Yu's. Don't be soft-hearted and let this woman take advantage of you. Mo Ling gently tugged at her dress as she spoke with a smile on her face. Let's talk about it after you win. After saying that, Xiao Yu charged over. This is too shameless. Fang Yu couldn't help but complain. What if he won and she went back on her word? However, since he had already made his move, Fang Yu would not show him any mercy. In order to complete the mission given by the super slaughter system, he was now the enemy of the entire world. If he won, that would be good, but if he lost, he was afraid that everyone would kick him while he was down. Just thinking about such a scene made him excited. Soaring Dragon Technique. Fang Yu immediately activated the dragon soaring technique, moving like a swimming dragon. Even if Xiao Yu's long legs swept over like iron whips, Fang Yu still easily dodged them, causing Xiao Yu to return empty-handed time and time again. Xiao Yu furrowed her brows. Previously, when Fang Yu was dealing with Kong Wanxian and Sword Demon, he used brute force to break through. She specialized in speed and strength. According to the original plan, she would exhaust Fang Yu's stamina time and time again, exhausting Fang Yu's patience. From time to time, she would launch a sneak attack or two, causing Fang Yu to feel exhausted. When Fang Yu was truly exhausted, she would kill him in one strike. Actually, she wasn't that afraid of Fang Yu. It was just that Fang Yu's saber skills were a little sharp. She just happened to cultivate leg skills. Using her leg against a saber, wasn't that a stupid move? Thus, she had thought of a way to deal with this before standing out to challenge Fang Yu. Now, she was being snuck away by Fang Yu, and she was the one who was exhausting her stamina and patience. Swish! Fang Yu suddenly exerted his strength and closed the distance between him and Xiao Yu. This icy beauty of the Xiao family lost all color in her beautiful face. Swish! At the critical moment, she lifted her leg and was about to kick Fang Yu away. Isn't this the move I used to kick Sword Demon away? You want to trick me? You can't do it. Fang Yu sneered. Hearing this, Sword Demon, who was recuperating at the side, felt a sweetness in his throat as he stared at Fang Yu. This King Fang Yu. He swore that one day, he would definitely take revenge. Otherwise, he wouldn't be human. Bang! Fang Yu raised his saber and smashed it. Weakness exploit. Although it was the back of the saber, Fang Yu had a shocking comprehension of saber skills. He easily smashed Xiao Yu's leg and forced her to retract it. Xiao Yu's pretty face was covered in cold sweat. Fang Yu's move just now had caused cracks to appear on her leg bones. One had to know that she was wearing a spirit armor. Fang Yu only used the back of the saber to attack, and it already had such power? What kind of man was this? Alright, you lost. Otherwise, your leg would already be broken. 3 items. One less and you will know that I, Fang Yu, am not a person who has tender feelings for the fairer sex. Fang Yu's words were emotionless, causing people to feel fear. Even Xiao Yu could not help but lower her head. This was because she was clear that if it was a real fight, she would be killed by Fang Yu in a single strike. Even if one strike did not kill her, it would be a matter of adding another strike. I say this, little sister, our brother Fang's temper is good, but it does not mean that he does not have a temper. In my opinion, Mo Ling obediently went forward to negotiate with Xiao Yu. Very quickly, Xiao Yu handed over the 3 items and retreated. Spirit stones? Worthless hard currency. But there are quite a few fire attribute ones. That will save me some effort. Fang Yu looked at the large pile of spirit stones in the storage ring that Xiao Yu had handed over. The elf race was one of his trump cards, and he had to nurture them well. No matter what, Fang Yu had learned his lesson from his previous life. He did not like to put all his eggs in one basket. Even if the super slaughter system was beneficial to him, it was still the same. The second item is a piece of Xiao family's experience on alchemy. Although I am not very interested in these things, they are not cabbages. I will accept them for the time being. Fang Yu looked at the third item. What is this? A stone? And it is passed down from the ancestors? Xiao family's ancestors were also very rich. They had produced a martial emperor, but that was a long time ago. It was so long ago that people did not take this thing seriously. Although it has been many years, it did not show its divinity or spirit. It is really disappointing. Mo Ling said the details of this stone. Sigh, it is shoddy. Fang Yu helplessly accepted it. The value of this item was obvious. Although there were not many martial emperors in the myriad spirit continent, there were still quite a few who did not have a few inheritance items. And now, Xiao Yu was trying to trick him? Furthermore, after giving the item, she immediately ran away without even seeing her shadow. Wasn't her leg injured? It was really, who else? Fang Yu asked loudly. Time passed and night fell. At this moment, Fang Yu had already won 9 consecutive victories. He was like a god of war standing in Flame City. Many people who wanted to challenge him retreated. Because of his 9 consecutive victories, there was no lack of famous prodigies like Sword Demon and Xiao Yu among them. If even they had lost, how were they supposed to fight? Chapter 212. 9 wins in a row. Everyone looked at Fang Yu, who was ranked first on the leaderboard. No matter how proud and confident they were, it was too difficult for them to achieve 9 wins in a row at Fang Yu's position. They were all 1 in 100 geniuses, and it was not a problem for them to fight consecutively. But 9 wins in a row, they did not dare to think about it. Xiao Yu and Sword Demon are among them. They are all geniuses who suddenly came here, but they still lost to Fang Yu. Is there really no one who can defeat him? Not yet, but these people won't make a move now. People whispered among themselves. There were also some who saw the clues. Whether it was Xiao Yu or Sword Demon, they actually had the strength to defeat Fang Yu. But they still lost. They lost because of their keen sense of smell. Fang Yu was young, but he was not much different from a wild beast that roamed the forest all year round. He discovered their flaws immediately and broke through them without hesitation. It might be a coincidence if this happened once or twice, but it could not be a coincidence if it happened 3 or 4 times, and even 9 wins in a row. Fang Yu is really terrifying. Some people had already made up their minds to stay far away from Fang Yu. They definitely would not mix with such a dangerous person. Fang Yu did not care and asked lazily, "Who else?" He knew that his actions had already attracted the attention of some powerful people. It was only a matter of time before they made a move. Since he was already playing, he might as well play bigger. Fang Yu, quit while you're ahead. I have a feeling that your 10th opponent will not be easy to deal with, Mo Ling suddenly said. Fang Yu could not help but look over. He knew that Mo Ling was never someone who spoke without thinking. Since she had said so, this kind of thing was most likely going to happen. As the saying goes, a tall tree attracts the wind. I more or less understand your intentions and thoughts, but now that you have 9 wins in a row, you're only 1 person away from 10 wins. The meaning is very different, Mo Ling said in a profound tone. Although the general trend had already been formed. However, there was a huge difference between a 9-win streak and a 10-win streak. What's more, Fang Yu was still flaunting his prowess as if he didn't care about his life. She dared to say that the 10th person would definitely not be weak. Of course, she had also made some deductions. According to the divination, if Fang Yu lost the next battle, he would suffer a crushing defeat. But if he won, the fame and reputation he would gain would be doubled. From this, it could be seen that the next opponent was truly extraordinary. Fang Yu was about to say something when his 10th opponent arrived. Daimeng? Daimeng, known as the Little Martial King. Some people were shocked. It was a little lowly. She looked like she was carved from jade, but her aura was so strong that it made Fang Yu frown. 8-star Martial Grand Master? Fang Yu said. She has some background. Don't underestimate her. Mo Ling reminded. There are rumors that she might be a reincarnated person. Mo Ling paused for a moment before continuing. A reincarnated person? Hearing this, Fang Yu's expression suddenly became serious. A reincarnated person. Literally, this person had been reincarnated once. It was different from the ordinary meaning of rebirth. Rebirth, perhaps, was like Fang Yu, arriving at a place that had nothing to do with the original world. There were many restrictions to reincarnation. One of them was that one could not leave the original world. Other than that, the conditions for reincarnation were very harsh, and one's achievements might not be as high as the previous life. Therefore, some sages who met the conditions for reincarnation would not easily attempt it. A reincarnated person. This is going to be difficult to deal with. The dragon's soul suddenly interjected. Is there any explanation? Fang Yu asked. There is. The biggest disadvantage of reincarnation is that once you reincarnate, you might be killed in the end and be consigned to eternal damnation, unable to reincarnate. If you die normally, even if you are unlucky and get killed in the reincarnation, you will still have a chance to reincarnate. A reincarnated person does not have such a chance, unless they become a martial emperor. The dragon's soul said seriously. What's the difference between a reincarnated martial emperor and a reincarnated martial saint? Fang Yu asked again. The difference is huge. When you become a martial emperor, you absorb the energy of heaven and earth here. What does this mean? It means that you are a person of the myriad spirit continent when you are alive and a ghost of the myriad spirit continent when you die. A reincarnated martial emperor is bound to the myriad spirit continent for all eternity. Unless you break through to become a 9-star martial emperor. Otherwise, you won't be able to transcend. Then, here comes the question. Why do so many martial emperors break through the void to find opportunities? Isn't it because they think that they can't progress further in the myriad spirit continent? The dragon's soul shook its head and said, since that's the case, the martial emperors who are bound here have no chance of progressing further. Most of them are just greedy for pleasure or to protect their descendants. However, this method is really unwise. Martial emperor clans and martial emperor divine kingdoms are originally destined. They originate from martial emperors. Then, when a martial emperor is gone, turning into ashes and vanishing into thin air, isn't that normal? Fang Yu nodded slightly. However, who would care about what happens after death when they were alive? Generally, cultivators wouldn't think too much about this kind of thing. Dai Meng might be a reincarnated person. Moreover, she reincarnated at a very young age. There aren't many records of her. This is a magical place. Mo Ling didn't know that Fang Yu was communicating with the dragon soul, and continued speaking. That's interesting. Then, how did people guess her identity as a reincarnated person? Fang Yu asked again. One day, she awakened. In just 1 year, she reached this stage. It can be said that her progress is godly. Mo Ling said seriously. These words made the corner of Fang Yu's mouth twitch. If Dai Meng's progress was godly, then what was he? I didn't expect that the little martial king, Dai Meng, would be Fang Yu's 10th opponent. Lu Xinzhan's eyes widened. Dai Meng's fame was too great. The main reason why people believed that Dai Meng was a reincarnated person was that she had defeated too many so-called geniuses. The fear she brought to these people caused them to retreat whenever Dai Meng was around. One must know that these people were all people who had become martial grandmasters before the age of 20. They were actually forced into such a state by a little girl. It was really unbelievable. What was even more unbelievable was that Dai Meng had actually come to the Azure Dragon Academy. According to the various rumors, Dai Meng had some relationship with the Vermilion Bird Academy in her previous life. Obviously, going to the Vermilion Bird Academy would help her better cultivate and guarantee more resources. In the end, Dai Meng suddenly came to the Azure Dragon Academy and even stood out to challenge Fang Yu. What was going on? Chapter 213. Is this Dai Meng really that scary? He Ping was eager to try. People like them who practiced the way of the fist liked to challenge the strong and then defeat the strong. No matter how one looked at it, this Dai Meng was the #1 person worth challenging. I advise you not to be rash. Lu Shuzhan tilted his head and said, Dai Meng is not to be trifled with. The reason why she's so famous is because she stepped on a lot of people who should have shone brightly in this year's selection. He Ping did not believe it. Although being possessed by a demon had caused He Ping's confidence to drop, she was still a person with a firm Dao heart. She would not be defeated so easily. Just this point, she was much stronger than Feng Yaoguang. Because of this, He Ping could become a martial arts sect disciple, but Feng Yaoguang could not. Opponents like Sword Demon and Xiao Yu are already famous in our generation. However, Dai Meng has defeated at least 2 such people. Unlike Feng Yu, who is a tall tree that attracts the wind and seeks trouble for himself, Dai Meng has challenged them one by one and defeated them one by one. That's how she gained such fame. Lu Shuzhan hesitated for a while and said, There is also a saying that Dai Meng cares a lot about her fame, which is why she keeps challenging strong opponents. He Ping nodded slightly. There will be a chance. As long as Dai Meng was still in the Azure Dragon Mirror, she would always have a chance to challenge her. Dai Meng versus Feng Yu. The inspectors looked at each other. In fact, they had already noticed the changes in Flame City. Wasn't the purpose of inspectors to prevent accidents from happening? If Feng Yu wanted to take on 10 people by himself and this wasn't something worth worrying about, then what was? What was even more amazing was that Feng Yu really had 9 consecutive victories. This kind of thing, even if it was spread, no one would dare to believe it. But now that Dai Meng was here, it was hard to say. Feng Yu's winning streak might come to an end. The little martial king, Dai Meng. She proposed to come to our place for the selection, and the upper echelons immediately agreed. After all, according to the rules, as long as Dai Meng is willing to stay in our Azure Dragon Academy to train, we will definitely have a few more graduates this year. That's right. Dai Meng is very likely to be a reincarnated person. Our academy also has a mentor who is a reincarnated person. If they complement each other, there will definitely be a miraculous effect. I'm afraid the Vermilion Bird Academy won't let this go so easily. Dai Meng is someone they've already decided to enter the Vermilion Bird Academy, but now she's come to us. Even so, we still have to respect the students' personal wishes. If Dai Meng is willing to come to us, how can we drive her away? The inspectors whispered to each other. Due to the fact that more than 10 or 20 good seedlings had been transferred to the Azure Dragon Academy for the assessment midway through the selection this time, the Azure Dragon Academy was much more cautious. One must know that the competition between the 4 great academies was intense. Having one more outstanding graduate would mean that they would be able to suppress the other academies. It was of great significance. Such a seedling naturally could not be allowed to do as they pleased, especially some unnecessary casualties. If something went wrong, they were not afraid of having to answer to the power behind the student. The Azure Dragon Academy, or rather the 4 great academies selection, was like this. It was impossible for them not to know the risks involved. But since they were here, they had to follow their rules. There was nothing much to say. It was just that good seedlings and good students were hard to come by. If they were sacrificed for no reason, it would be too much of a waste. What do you guys think, Feng Yu versus Dai Meng? Who will win and who will lose? Someone suddenly raised this question. Everyone looked over, deep in thought. Dai Meng could be called Little Martial King by others, so her strength was evident. But Feng Yu's 9 consecutive victories were also very valuable. Kong Wanxian, Sword Ghost, Xiao Yu and the other outstanding rising stars had all become Feng Yu's stepping stones. Feng Yu was currently a well-deserved dark horse. If the 2 of them were to go up against each other, it was really hard to say who would win and who would lose. Although Dai Meng is young, her body is so strong that even I tremble with fear. Feng Yu may not be her match. That's what you say. Feng Yu's sharp intuition during a battle is quite astonishing. Dai Meng has won too many times and is too proud. Even if she stumbles against Fang Yu, it wouldn't be strange. I think they are evenly matched, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. In short, before they become martial kings, the weaknesses of these juniors are relatively obvious, and they all have some obvious weaknesses. The inspectors were discussing excitedly. At this moment, Dai Meng took a deep breath and said, "Fang Yu, you lost. You will be my battle slave and fight for me." What did you say? The wind is too strong, I didn't hear clearly. Fang Yu was stunned and asked in astonishment, "Did you just say that you want me to be your battle slave? You can't be." The literal meaning of a battle slave was a slave who fought for the master. The status of a battle slave was very low. Even if the master became a martial emperor, they would not be able to enjoy any good treatment. At most, they would be slightly better than ordinary martial artists. It could be said that it was a very degrading thing. Generally speaking, a battle slave was someone who had committed a heinous crime, or even someone who had a life and death grudge. Winner takes all. If they lost, they could only accept their fate of being enslaved, unless they had the determination to kill themselves. However, Fang Yu and Dai Meng had no enmity between them, and this was the first time they had met. How could she be so ruthless? Was there really no mistake? You didn't hear wrong. I said that I want you to be my battle slave. Dai Meng said word by word. Can I ask why? Fang Yu could not help but ask. Originally, he had been frightened by the crowd's introduction of Dai Meng. However, when Dai Meng suddenly said something about a battle slave, Fang Yu was really confused. Originally, I was thinking of becoming the first on the list tonight. However, with your actions, even if I become the first on the list, they will still remember you, Fang Yu. You have offended me. You have to pay the price. Dai Meng answered seriously. Ordinary martial artists might think that Dai Meng was being ridiculous. After saying so much, it was just this? Just because of this reason? Wasn't it too childish? However, some people understood another message. Dai Meng wanted to take advantage of tonight to increase her points. At night, everyone was either resting or comprehending. Who would have the time to fight with you? Even if Dai Meng really wanted to fight, it was impossible for her to kill her way to the first on the list in one night. Therefore, if Dai Meng wanted to take advantage of tonight and become the first on the list, then there was only one possibility. She could take advantage of the beast tide to go out and kill demonic beasts to increase her points and become the first on the list. Crazy. Thinking of this, many people thought that Dai Meng was crazy. She even dared to think of such a thing. Chapter 214. But she's Dai Meng. After thinking about it, someone couldn't help but say, Dai Meng was omnipotent. This was a feeling that arose spontaneously after knowing who Dai Meng was. Alright, cut the crap. If you lose, you'll also be my battle slave. It won't take too long. 10 years. Fang Yu said seriously. 10 years of battle slave? You really dare to think about it. After all, it's impossible. Dai Meng sneered. I'm very unhappy with you. Hee, do you think I like you? Fang Yu smiled, completely ignoring Dai Meng's feelings. In fact, what Dai Meng felt had nothing to do with him. This woman was going against him. So what if she's a lowly? He could still defeat her. Then come. Dai Meng suddenly charged over. Feeling Dai Meng's aura rising to the peak in an instant, Fang Yu's pupils shrank. It turned out that this little girl had been accumulating her strength all along. She did it on purpose. She was waiting for an opportunity to kill him by surprise. Naive. Fang Yu was fearless and faced Dai Meng head-on. Kid, don't fall for it. The dragon's soul quickly reminded him. Fang Yu paused. Dragon's soaring technique. Dai Meng's eyes flashed, and she sped up. Boom! The place where Fang Yu was standing just now was blasted into a huge pit. If Fang Yu didn't dodge in time, he would have been seriously injured. Fang Yu was shocked. What exactly did this so-called cute little girl eat to grow up? This punch had such power. It was too much of a violation of the rules. As expected. Kid, she has several bloodlines. The dragon soul said solemnly, the primordial giant, and several other unorthodox bloodlines whose names we don't know. There's such a thing? Fang Yu's gaze towards Dai Meng changed. Initially, he thought that she was just an arrogant little loli. He didn't expect her to be so vicious and merciless. Her first move was to immobilize him. Compared to the previous 9 people, she was undoubtedly even more vicious. This was because those who had lost to Fang Yu before weren't considered weak. They were just overcautious when they made a move. They knew that this battle was just an ordinary battle. After this battle, they still had to face the beast horde tonight, as well as some unknown opponents and sneak attacks. After all, the rules stated that one couldn't force a challenge. However, if the other party tried to trip you up, you couldn't just forbid it. However, none of them were like Dai Meng, who used all of their trump cards right from the start to trample Fang Yu to the ground. If it weren't for your reminder, I might have fallen into her trap. Did you just call me kid? Fang Yu came to a realization and said, "Cough, cough, you heard wrong. It's master." The dragon soul coughed a few times and explained. Fang Yu didn't delve into this matter. Instead, he went back to the topic at hand. It seems that the longer I fight with Dai Meng, the more disadvantageous it will be for me. Yes. If you continue to fight with her, her blood will get hotter, and she'll become stronger. You'll definitely be worse off if you fight with her. You have to end the battle quickly, the dragon soul replied. Speaking of ending the battle quickly, I have a good idea, the dragon soul said with deep meaning. Seeing that Fang Yu had dodged her sure kill attack, Dai Meng became even more unhappy. She was already very certain that this Fang Yu was incompatible with her, so she had to punish him properly. She wanted to let the world know how serious it was to offend her, Dai Meng. Fang Yu might not be able to get away with it this time, Mo Ling said with a headache. As the saying goes, the soft fears the hard fears the unreasonable, and the unreasonable fears those who don't care about their lives. Dai Meng is someone who doesn't care about her life. This kind of person isn't easy to deal with. Fang Yu will definitely have a way, Feng Yaoguang said with a firm tone. I say, Sister Feng, do you really trust Fang Yu that much? I couldn't tell before, Mo Ling said with a smile. She was also a woman, so she was well aware of some obscure things and the twists and turns in her heart. It wasn't that Feng Yaoguang wasn't sincere to Fang Yu, but their relationship was limited to cooperation. How much trust did she have in him? However, she could tell that Feng Yaoguang was serious. This was interesting. Feng Yaoguang was about to reply when Fang Yu grinned and said, Dai Meng, I've already seen through your trump card. You should surrender now. Otherwise, it won't be a good show later. Dai Meng frowned. Her trump card was seen through? Was Fang Yu worth it? How many trump cards did she have? Even if he saw through it, so what if she was using the power of her bloodline? She wasn't trying to hide her strength. She was using it openly. If Fang Yu had the ability, he could come and break her attack directly. What the hell was with the sudden verbal attack? Fang Yu said that he saw through Dai Meng's trump card? That can't be. In fact, after Dai Meng defeated many experts, there were rumors that Dai Meng was so strong because of the power of her bloodline. But how can he break the power of her bloodline? The best way is to suppress her with a stronger bloodline. However, Dai Meng's bloodlines are quite extraordinary. How can he suppress her? Just when everyone was thinking about how Fang Yu was going to defeat Dai Meng's face changed. Ugh, she felt disgusted and wanted to vomit. This was because she felt an absolute suppression from her bloodline. The dragon gate in Fang Yu's body was shining brightly, emitting a terrifying aura. This aura directly locked onto Dai Meng. He was using the power of the dragon gate to suppress Dai Meng's bloodline. The dragon gate was the most precious thing of the dragon race. To the dragon race, it had the effect of strengthening or weakening. Even if one wasn't from the dragon race, as long as their bloodline was weaker than the dragon race, they would still be suppressed and weakened. Now that Dai Meng had activated several bloodline powers in her body, the sudden suppression of the dragon gate brought about a terrifying backlash. She couldn't stand steadily and knelt down on one knee. This scene petrified everyone. What did Fang Yu do? How could he make Dai Meng Jr. kneel on one knee? He broke Dai Meng's bloodline power? Someone thought of this possibility. Based on everything that had happened, the most likely possibility was that Fang Yu had found a way to restrain Dai Meng's bloodline and successfully used it, causing Dai Meng's bloodline power to become a double-edged sword and backfire on herself. Dai Meng was burning with anxiety and wanted to retreat. She had just watched several of Fang Yu's battles. As long as Fang Yu revealed a flaw, he would end everything. Sure enough, before Dai Meng could retreat, Fang Yu's dragon tooth blade had already landed firmly on the little lowly's fair neck. You've lost. Dai Meng felt the sharpness from the dragon tooth blade and didn't dare to make a sound. Seeing this, the entire place was dead silent. Fang Yu won. He really fought 10 people. Chapter 215. Little Martial King Dai Meng lost. Someone mumbled to himself. And she lost so suddenly. Admit defeat, or else your head will roll. Fang Yu warned Dai Meng. He could tell that this girl had more than one trump card. It was just a coincidence that he had broken her bloodline power, and then ended the battle in one go. Of course, if it wasn't a challenge, Fang Yu would have already chopped her head off. Why would he waste time talking to her? However, when little Martial King Dai Meng said the word, she suddenly retreated. Soaring dragon technique. Fang Yu wanted to chase after her, but Dai Meng was too fast. She left Blazing City directly. Obviously, she didn't want to spend the night in Blazing City. Fang Yu, I will remember this. Dai Meng's unwilling voice echoed in the distance. Swoosh! Suddenly, a white light flew over and entered Fang Yu's token. Points plus 10. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the mission. Seeing this, Fang Yu heaved a sigh of relief. He accidentally let Dai Meng run away just now. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to complete the mission. Now that the mission had been completed, everything was easy to deal with. As for the random learning voucher, there's no rush, Fang Yu thought to himself. He still didn't know which one of them had a good mystic technique. Although the mysterious heaven technique was good, it was authentic and peaceful, and was suitable for him to continue cultivating. It didn't stop him from gathering the strengths of other techniques and creating his own. Therefore, the search for more cultivation methods was put on the agenda again. He really defeated 10 people. Even little Martial King Dai Meng was defeated. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect Fang Yu to really defeat 10 people and win 10 times in a row. And the last opponent was the famous little Martial King Dai Meng. Dai Meng won't let this go. Someone suddenly said, she will be able to break through to martial spirit soon. Once she becomes a martial spirit, she will definitely come back to take revenge on Fang Yu. Everyone nodded. Don't underestimate the number of experts and experts here. In fact, there is a dividing line here. Martial spirit. The one who became a martial spirit first would undoubtedly have the advantage. After all, even if one could cultivate quickly as a martial grandmaster, it did not mean that one could become a martial spirit as quickly. Apart from talent, luck was equally important in breaking through each major realm. Fang Yu couldn't care less. He had completed his mission and couldn't be bothered to stay here any longer. He prepared to return to the southern gate array pagoda. Fang Yu, Dai Meng left today. She will definitely come back for revenge. Mo Ling reminded. A reincarnated person was in existence that even a rising star of the heavenly mystery hall like Mo Ling had to fear. Once Dai Meng matured, things would become difficult. It's good that she's back. Running away after losing? Hee, do you think it's so easy to owe me, Fang Yu? Fang Yu said with a faint smile. However, if he were to ask himself honestly, this Dai Meng really had a lot of trump cards. Just now, unless Fang Yu used all his trump cards, he really couldn't do anything to Dai Meng, who was determined to escape. It was also because of this that Fang Yu decided to let Dai Meng go. Night was about to fall. When the time came, danger would also arrive. Fang Yu did not want to take the initiative to put himself in danger. Watching Fang Yu leave, Lu Xinzhan's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He really fought against 10 people alone. What kind of monster was this? If it were her or her brother Lu Tianbing, such a thing would be unimaginable. Especially the last one, the martial king Dai Meng. This was a person who was even more famous than Bai Wuxia. Fang Yu had really trampled all these people under his feet. It was truly inconceivable. Fang Yu Wangzhong muttered the name as his eyes burned with passion. He no longer treated Fang Yu as someone to follow. He wanted to surpass Fang Yu. Ping did not say anything. However, the way she looked at Fang Yu was filled with fighting spirit. This is Bai Wuxia's opponent. Bai Wuxia could not wait to fight with Fang Yu. However, because of the promise he had with Fang Yu, he had to endure it. There were still 2 days left. He wanted to see how far Fang Yu could go. Who would have thought that this Fang Yu would win? The inspectors were equally surprised. In this kind of challenge, when the difference in cultivation was not too big, it was not strange to see who would win. However, Fang Yu's victory was far too clean and direct. Dai Meng did not even have the strength to fight back. Did Fang Yu do this on purpose or? It can't be on purpose. Dai Meng was transferred here at the last minute. Not many people know her background. Even if they did, it would be extremely difficult to set her up. That makes sense. Dai Meng kept challenging the younger generation's geniuses. Many families were already dissatisfied with her. They were all prepared and guarded against her. But in the end, Dai Meng still had the last laugh. This Fang Yu is really a dark horse. The inspectors noted down Fang Yu's name. This kind of genius, the rising star of tomorrow, could very well become their principal or vice principal in the future. Although their current principal was not promoted through the test, he was just promoted out of nowhere. The beast horde will arrive in at most 2 hours. The beast horde is also an important indicator of a martial artist's ability. I wonder what will happen to them. The inspectors thought to themselves. One had to know that the beast horde was extremely dangerous. Being in the middle of a beast horde, not to mention a martial grand master, even a martial spirit could be drowned. Although there were occasionally people like little Martial King Dai Meng, they were still in the minority. Fang Yu, I didn't expect you to really fight 10 people alone. Feng Yaoguang could not help but exclaim. If a normal martial artist fought 10 opponents of the same cultivation level in a row, they would definitely be exhausted. However, Fang Yu did not do that. When he fought, he was very clever. Usually, he would kill his opponents in one hit or fight in the most energy-efficient way. There was actually someone who could use time-saving and energy-efficient methods? That was amazing! Why? Do you want to learn? I'll teach you, Fang Yu said lazily. Aya, shouldn't it be said that it can only be understood but not explained? Mo Ling said with a smile. Alright, back to business. How much do you know about the beast horde? Fang Yu asked. Didn't we talk about the beast horde before? Why are you still asking if you know? Mo Ling said innocently. I'm really close to digging my heart out. Why don't you believe me? What I want to ask is going out to hunt demonic beasts. Fang Yu said indifferently. Hearing this, Mo Ling's expression changed. She was somewhat puzzled. Why? You can fight 10 people alone and your reputation has already reached the peak. I believe that for the time being, there shouldn't be anyone stupid enough to provoke you, right? Since that's the case, why take the risk? In the past, there were martial spirits who were drowned by the beast horde. Chapter 216. Fang Yu smiled and said, If I say I want to train myself, would you believe me? Of course. Before Mo Ling and Feng Yaoguang could reply, Kegu Air answered first. Brother Fang, your stance just now was truly breathtaking. As for your decision to enter the depths of the beast horde, I can understand that as well. Oh! Fang Yu looked at him curiously. He wanted to know how Kegu understood him. In the barbarian tribe, there are also some warriors who are unwilling to be ordinary. They believe that only in the most dangerous situations can a cultivator unleash the strongest power in their body. Therefore, they often do things that have a slim chance of survival. Kegu paused for a moment before continuing. Although there are many warriors who died after courting death, those who didn't die all have great achievements. Fang Yu, you don't need to do that. Mo Ling shook her head. Tell me about the beast tide. Fang Yu enunciated each and every word seriously. This, all right. Mo Ling sighed. The composition of the beast tide is actually very complicated. Most of them are low-level demonic beasts. When a demonic beast reaches the middle level, it has the strength of a martial grand master. When it reaches the upper level, it has the strength of a martial spirit. Mo Ling continued. Fang Yu nodded. Generally speaking, demonic beasts were divided into 3 grades: first, second, and third. Middle was 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Upper was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Every grade was divided into upper, middle, and lower grades. Actually, for powerful cultivators, there wasn't much difference between the upper, middle, and lower grades. It was just a matter of killing a kid with a punch. Was there a difference? However, for some weaker martial artists there was still a huge difference between low grade, middle grade, and high grade. This was because demonic beasts' strength would increase with their cultivation. For demonic beasts that were born with their own bloodlines, this would be even more terrifying. For example, the bloodline power that Dai Meng displayed came from powerful demonic beasts. Therefore, it wasn't strange that some demonic beasts also had such bloodlines. Generally speaking, the beast tide in the Azure Dragon Mirror will be led by a higher-grade demonic beast. However, they are very cunning and won't show themselves. They will hide and wait for an opportunity. Mo Ling continued. The second round of the Green Dragon Mirror is already a special day for us. It's even more so for demonic beasts. Devouring the flesh and blood of martialists will allow them to grow even faster. This is the same principle as how cultivators consume demonic beasts' flesh and blood. Fang Yu thought. That's right. It can even be said that the demonic beasts here will gradually become high-grade demonic beasts or even demonic kings if they don't die after going through multiple trials. The Azure Dragon Mirror is a place of fortune and opportunity for us. It's the same for the demonic beasts that are raised here. Mo Ling said. Among these demonic beasts, are there any demonic beasts kings? Fang Yu suddenly asked. Yes. Feng Yaoguang interrupted. However, demonic beasts are restricted to the central area. They can't come out before the restriction is lifted. We can't go in either. Fang Yu didn't find it strange that Feng Yaoguang knew about this. Since King of Plentiful Treasures was a graduate of the Azure Dragon Institute and even left his name on the Hidden Dragon ranking and Azure Dragon ranking, it wasn't strange that he knew some secrets about the second test. The time limit is 7 days. After 7 days, before the restriction is lifted, there will be a replenishment. Feng Yaoguang's eyes flickered when she mentioned the replenishment. It's just a replenishment. In fact, it's a transaction between cultivators and the Azure Dragon Institute's auction. Auction? You can do that? Fang Yu clicked his tongue in amazement. It's a benefit for the time being. Because they only accept points. The points in the second test. They don't accept anything else like spirit stones. Of course, if it's a valuable treasure, you can complete the transaction with a certain amount of point. However, in this place, any powerful treasure represents a part of one's combat strength. If you sell it easily, even if you exchange it, it doesn't mean that your combat strength will increase. Moreover, the treasures in the auction are different every time. It's a test of luck and judgment. Other than that, the auction also accepts a type of exchange, which is the demonic beast cores from the Azure Dragon Mirror. The demonic beasts here more or less absorbed the power of the Azure Dragon Mirror to grow. Simply put, if you return the demonic beast cores to the Azure Dragon Mirror, you can replenish its vitality. Feng Yaoguang counted with her fingers and said, in short, points, treasures, and demonic beast cores. They're the 3 main currencies. I have some points. As for treasures, I'm poor and don't have many treasures. I only accept demonic beast cores from the Azure Dragon Mirror. The conditions are quite harsh. Fang Yu clicked his tongue. The main thing is that if you use treasures as collateral, you'll have to deduct a portion of the transaction fee. Therefore, it's better to trade the treasures with other martial artists and exchange them for points. After that, you'll be able to exchange for more items without a middleman. Feng Yaoguang spoke without stopping. What I mean is that for the next few days, points and demonic beast cores will be our top priority. Fang Yu nodded and glanced at the sky outside. When it gets dark, I'll go out. You guys guard the South Gate Formation Pagoda for me. One of the functions of the Formation Pagoda was to activate or deactivate the formation of Flame City. Once it was activated, unless one was a martial emperor, it would be impossible to force their way in. This applied to both martial artists and demonic beasts. Therefore, when demonic beasts of the Demon King level were restricted, there was no need to worry about demonic beasts breaking through the formation and forcing their way in. Fang Yu, are you really going? Mo Ling asked worriedly. At first, she more or less thought that Fang Yu was joking. Yes, killing demonic beasts in the Beast Tide was indeed a shortcut to earning points. However, there was another problem. Even if he was going to kill demonic beasts, it wouldn't be his first day. The martial Emperor Dai Meng was a lunatic. Under the circumstances where she didn't want to admit defeat, she fled without a trace. It wasn't strange that she didn't even want to stay in Flame City. However, there was no need for Fang Yu to do so. Could it be that he was going to chase after Dai Meng? I'm really going. Fang Yu took a deep breath and said. Originally, he wanted to take it slow. However, after defeating 10 people in a row today, he knew that it would be difficult to take it easy on the day of the selection. Although he had defeated Sword Ghost, Kong Wanxian, Xiao Yu and the others, once they reached the martial spirit realm, they would definitely have a chance to retaliate. Therefore, Fang Yu couldn't relax. Moreover, it was rare for there to be a beast tide. It was a good opportunity to test the sharpness of the super slaughter system. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.